As I delved into the metaverse game, I became a god raising pets. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26 lifted out. In a restaurant in Jinsao, in a private room on the second floor, Sujin sat by the window, watching the small door of the Liu family being opened. Let me go, you bitches. I'm the future wife of the Prime Minister. If you dare to do this to me, I'll kill you. Liu Sissy struggled hard, staring at the maids around her fiercely. Those maids didn't take her words to heart at all. They tied her up tightly with a sneer and threw her into the carriage. Be honest. Everyone knows that you killed your own sister. The eldest lady was really good to you back then. She was afraid that you would be unhappy, so she went to comfort you every day. All the good things in the house were sent to you first. What an ungrateful person. Just because the prince of the mansion wanted to marry the eldest lady, she hated the eldest lady and thought that if the eldest lady was gone, the prince would marry her. If the eldest lady was gone, it wouldn't be her turn. Several maids spoke loudly without holding back or trying to cover up. Several families nearby heard it. Even Sujin Ayu, who was a little further away, heard it clearly. The maids got on the carriage and personally sent Liu Sissy away. And what Liu Sissy did has been spread everywhere in the streets and alleys in the past few days. Everyone was terrified when they heard it. It's terrible. What kind of vicious woman is this? My mother said that the women of the Liu family are good and wanted me to marry her. How can the daughters of the Liu family get married in the future? Where are the daughters of the Liu family? The previous eldest daughter was poisoned to death. I heard that there was a young girl before, but she died very early because of her weak and sickly body. Now think about it. Is it because of her weak and sickly body? Maybe she was poisoned to death. The daughter of the Liu family is so vicious. I dare not let my daughter marry there. What if the daughter of the Liu family suddenly runs back and poisons the family again? Wouldn't it be a big bad luck? Listening to the discussions around him, Sujin put down the teacup. After solving this matter, he can finally go back to the academy to attend classes with peace of mind. At the same time, at the Su family, Ruanruan gradually recovered and began to walk around in the yard. Sister Zhu and Leo Lei suddenly rushed in from outside. Looking at the door that was shaking under the impact of excessive force, Ruanruan twitched her eyes. Are the interstellar people too impetuous? This is the 9th time they have broken the door. Although they finally repaired it, but the door of the Su family has changed from brand new and beautiful to tattered and full of patches. Sister. Great news. The woman who poisoned you was sent away by her family. They said she was sent to the manor to recuperate. How could she be sent to recuperate? I heard that she poisoned her sister and offended Madame Liu, so she was sent to the manor. Sister Zhu sneered. Everyone doesn't talk about this matter openly, but they all know it in private. The two were full of relief. This lunatic is being guarded by someone, so you don't have to worry about him coming to trouble you. Ruanruan was stunned for a moment. I didn't expect it. She had been thinking about finding a way to solve the problem after she recovered, but who knew that the problem would be solved before she even started. Asterisk Liu's family. Liu's house rushed into the main courtyard angrily and kicked the door open. Liu. How can you be a lady? Sis's story has spread everywhere. Now everyone in Jinsao knows that I have such a morally corrupt daughter. Madame Liu was sitting quietly at the table, and her hand holding the spoon trembled slightly. She slowly took out a handkerchief and wiped her mouth. She killed my daughter, but as a mother, I didn't kill her to avenge her, which is already considered kind. I just sent her to the farm. What can you blame me for? Liu's house felt very suffocated in his chest. Are you crazy? Liu, what did Sissy do wrong? You can just teach her a lesson in private. Why make a big fuss? No matter how unhappy you are, you have to pay attention to the reputation of our Liu family. Madame Liu's lips unconsciously curled up into a sneer. The master has always liked Liu Sissy. When her daughter was still alive, the master didn't like her daughter. Instead, he doted on Liu Sissy. What's more, LIU Sis's aunt is still alive and is very favored in the LIU mansion. When the pillow wind blows, how can she control LIU Sissy? Naturally, she should act early. Besides, what does the reputation of the LIU family have to do with her? Exclamation mark. When she found out that the master had known the truth for a long time, she hated it so much that her eyes were about to bleed. At that time, LIU Sissy hadn't done anything to her daughter, and the master's people had already discovered it, but he had no intention of stopping it at all, and let the bitch kill her daughter. She hated it so much. Madam LIU clenched her fists tightly in her sleeves. LIU Sissy vented his temper fiercely, and seeing that she still looked dead, he flicked his sleeves and left angrily. She sat at the table for a while, and a young man ran over with sweat all over his head. Mom, I heard that dad just came over. Are you okay? Every time dad came to see mom, it was to vent his anger. If possible, he really hoped that person would not come to disturb mom's life again. Madam LIU forced a smile. What can mom do? You don't have to worry about this. After a moment of blankness, she suddenly sighed and said with some guilt, I'm sorry, mom insisted on spreading what LIU Sissy did, but ended up implicating you. I've heard that the girls I had previously favored have all refused, and your marriage may be difficult. Mom, what are you talking about? Big sister was so painful when she passed away, and people said that she was in poor health and had no blessings. Now the truth is out, it's the best for sister. He shook his head, thinking of his sister who used to be gentle and kind to him, and lowered his eyelids to cover the sadness in his eyes. The mother and son were silent for a long time, and the big stone in their hearts was finally put down a little. Asterisk after solving the problem of LIU Sissy, Ruanruan finally waited for the start of the provincial examination. Ruanruan prepared everything she needed, and personally sent her son to the examination room. Several contestants from the same village sat down in a restaurant not far from the examination room, and ordered a large table of dishes. Sister, are we really going to wait here foolishly? Lei glanced at the locked examination room and scratched his head. Yes, the naughty boys in the family have been trained hard by us. Others will faint, but our children will not. Someone echoed. Ruanruan was helpless. It's just to make preparations in advance, just in case something unexpected happens. You don't have to wait for everyone. Just take turns to send someone to guard here. Everyone nodded. After eating a big meal, several people discussed the time to guard, and suddenly, the door of the examination room opened. A familiar person was carried out. Chapter 27, Getting Married Early. Ruanruan and the others were all in good physical condition, and had good eyesight. They could see the person being carried out as soon as they leaned over, and they were all shocked. How is it possible? Why was my son carried out? Is he injured? Liu stood up and ran down in a hurry. The others also looked worried and hurried over. After the guards in charge of patrolling the examination room and Liu confirmed his son's identity, they explained the situation. The doctor in our examination room has already seen him. The young master suddenly fainted. Ruanruan and the others did not listen to Liu's communication, but acted separately. Several people drove the carriage over, and the others moved his son into the carriage. In the carriage, they had already invited a doctor in advance, thinking that they would be prepared for any eventuality. Unexpectedly, he would be used so soon. The doctor took a look, and was a little shocked. This young man is in good health, but I don't know what stimulated him. He fainted. He pondered for a while and shook his head. It's a pity. In fact, we don't need to send him out. When he wakes up, he can continue the exam. Hearing the doctor's words, Ruanruan relaxed. He fainted this time. He won't hurt his body, right? Madam, don't worry. This young man is in good health, but I don't know what can stimulate him. A trace of doubt flashed in the doctor's eyes. At this time, Liu also ended his conversation with the guards and returned to the carriage in a trance. Several people were a little surprised. Liu, don't be sad. If you don't pass the exam this time, the worst thing is that you can ask your son to work harder next time. Liu shook his head, speechless. My son is unlucky. He was assigned to the stinky number and fainted soon. What if he is assigned to the stinky number next time? What should I do? Everyone. They were shocked, but soon realized the trouble of this matter. That's right, don't think that people won't be so unlucky. When people are unlucky, even drinking cold water will get stuck in their teeth. Among their group, there is a contestant, and everyone calls her Sister Mary. Her luck is really bad. Every time she goes out alone, she will be targeted by thieves. Every time she sleeps alone, the bed will suddenly collapse. Even every time she eats alone, she will suddenly choke. The last time was very thrilling. If someone hadn't happened to pass by and rescued her in time, she would have finished the assessment long ago. What if someone's child is like her? Wouldn't it be? Just when everyone was worried, the door of the examination room opened again. The guard rolled his eyes, and after seeing them, he was relieved and waved repeatedly. Ruanruan and others immediately had a bad premonition. What's going on? Exclamation mark. Did someone faint again? Exclamation mark. She went over to ask, and sure enough, another contestant's son fainted, also because he was close to the stinking trumpet. After that, 2 more boys were sent out one after another. Looking at the 4 boys lying in the carriage, everyone sighed. I hope no one will be knocked out by the stinking trumpet next time. Fortunately, maybe the prayer worked, and the next 2 days were spent peacefully. After everyone else successfully completed the exam, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Asterisk after the exam, the children who successfully completed the 3-day exam went out to play, while the few who fainted, because of the stinking trumpet, began the devil's special training. This special training plan was made by Liu and several other parents, after discussing it for several days. Daddy, let us out quickly. I can't stand it. I'm in so much pain. I feel so dizzy. Ugh. I'm going to vomit up the food I ate yesterday. Passing through the toilet, Ruanruan heard the crying inside and shook her head helplessly. Liu and the others were also very angry this time. In order to solve the psychological trauma of several children, they had to fight poison with poison and sent the children directly to the toilet to take the exam. At least separate them a little. But fortunately, the toilet was bright enough, otherwise they might not even be able to read the book clearly. Not only did they simulate the exam in the toilet, Liu and others also planned to take a few children to grow some vegetables, and then get some manure as fertilizer, so that the children can adapt to the smell as soon as possible. I have to say, everyone has grown up. In the past, they didn't even know how to farm. Several people who failed the exam were in dire straits, and others were anxiously waiting for the results to come out. On this day, Mrs. Zhu rushed to the Su family in a carriage. Mother-in-law, I want to get married in advance. What do you think? Ruanruan was shocked. The Zhu family has always loved their daughter and wished they could keep their daughter for 2 more years. How could they suddenly change their minds? Exclamation mark. Her eyes changed several times, and she quickly figured out something, and a touch of sympathy flashed in her eyes. You, don't be too pessimistic. Even if she got sick, according to her experience in fast-forwarding middle school medicine for so many years, even cancer can be cured. There is no need to arrange your affairs so early. Second Madam Zhu frowned. Mother-in-law, how can I feel at ease? If Second Madam doesn't get married, I'm worried that she will be sent to the capital one day. It turned out that Madam Zhu was so anxious to get married because of this election in the capital. Before, the Zhu family hurriedly arranged marriages for several girls in the family, thinking that everything would be fine. Who knew that a few days ago, there were several beautiful young ladies in the neighboring state, who were also quite talented and even came from wealthy families. They had been engaged and were about to get married, but they were forcibly separated by their governor. He sent people to send several young ladies to the capital. Before, Madame Zhu hated the daughter of the Liu family very much, but it was not easy to take action against a little girl, so she simply contacted relatives in the capital and asked them to find evidence that Governor Liu embezzled money and brought him down. A prefect suddenly fell from power, and the capital could not find anyone to fill the position, so the matter of sending the beauties to Jinsao happened to be taken over by the prefect of the state next door, the idiot who sent the engaged girl to the capital. If the Zhu family did not have a good friend in the state next door, they might not have received the news so early. The girls of the Zhu family are all good looking. After receiving the news, the wives of the Zhu family hurried out and went to find their own relatives. After hearing what happened, Ruanruan felt speechless. However, she had seen a lot of weirdos, and the prefect next door was nothing. "Don't worry, there is no problem here," she immediately agreed. "But when the second mother marries over, do you want to renovate the house? After all, you have to hold a wedding." "No, no, no. There is no need for these things. The most important thing is to get married quickly." Mrs. Zhu waved her hands again and again. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28, Returning Home. The ladies of the Zhu family didn't want to cause trouble. After all, when they received the letter, the governor next door had already set off, and they would probably arrive in Jin's house soon. Seeing her frightened look, Ruanruan stopped persuading her and readily agreed. The contestants with daughters were very worried when they learned about this. Out of love for their daughters, they have always wanted to find a perfect son-in-law, but things turned out like this. Now none of them has decided on a son-in-law. But time is so urgent, and they are not willing to find a son-in-law to marry their daughters immediately. Unable to think of a way, they simply put down their worries and went to help Ruanruan. 2 days later, the 4 girls of the Zhu family were married off together. People in Jin's house were very shocked. Generally, wealthy families will not get married on the same day, as if they have no money. But the Zhu family. Could the Zhu family have gone bankrupt? The eldest and third daughters of the Zhu family both married into wealthy families, and the fourth daughter married an official, but the second daughter married a scholar. Is she not favored? I took a look. Except for the eldest daughter who got more things, the other 3 daughters got about the same amount from the Zhu family. According to the law, the eldest daughter should get more. So it seems that the favor of these people should be about the same. The people in the inn and tavern were gossiping. Asterisk when Ruanruan got on the sedan chair, she couldn't help crying. Unlike her sisters, her mother had told her that Sujinai would definitely go to Beijing to take the exam in the future. She didn't know where he would be assigned to work, and maybe she would never be able to return to Jin's house and see her family again in her life. She felt uneasy when she thought about living in a strange new home in the future. The sedan chair was shaking, and it was very lively outside. Many passers-by smiled and said a few auspicious words. Of course, there were also some malicious words. Is this the second girl? I heard that she married a poor scholar. Her life will definitely be hard in the future. Will she have to eat pickles every day? I wonder if this delicate young lady can bear it. She must not be as pretty as the others, and she has no talent or virtue. Otherwise she would not marry into such a poor family. Ruanruan's hand holding the handkerchief clenched slightly, and suddenly she heard the angry scolding around her. The Su family has given so much wedding money along the way. You don't say something nice, but instead say this to others. Do you have the nerve? If you have the ability, don't take the wedding money given by others. Mr. Su is handsome. Miss Zhu is beautiful and kind. The two of them will definitely be happy together. After being scolded by the people around her, those unpleasant words could no longer be heard, leaving only the voices of those saying auspicious words. Ruanruan's anxious heart gradually relaxed. At this moment, the sedan stopped. A big hand reached in. She hesitated for a moment and put her hand on it. The hand was large and steady, and it gently led her down. Somehow, Ruanruan felt more and more at ease. After the wedding ceremony, she was sent to a new room. She sat there uneasily for a while, and suddenly someone knocked on the door. Wen Yu walked to the door, and after a while, she came in with a plate of colorful dumplings, with a smile in her eyes. Miss, no, madam, that's great. Madam sent someone to send you dumplings, saying that they are for your stomach. If you want to eat anything, you can also ask us to go to the kitchen to ask. Ruanruan laughed, and dimples appeared on her cheeks. Asterisk on the day of returning home, the second room. Sujinai and her father-in-law were chatting in the study. Madame Zhu quickly pulled her daughter to her room. My dear daughter, have you been okay these days? Her eyes were like searchlights. She noticed the smile in her daughter's eyes and her slightly flushed cheeks, and then she felt relieved. Tell me about how you have been these days. Have you adapted to the life in the Su family? Ruanruan recalled. Not bad. It's just a little strange. Mother woke up very late except for the second day when she served tea. She got up very late at other times, almost at noon, and told me to tell the kitchen when I want to eat and not to wait for her. She didn't know if she was overthinking it, but always felt that her mother was a little lazy. After all, her own mother was in the zoo mansion, and she visited her mother every morning and evening, and she had never slacked off. Bah. How could she think of her mother like this? Exclamation mark. The Su family probably doesn't have much property. I've never seen mother go to meet the stewards. Usually she sleeps until noon, gets up to eat, then goes out to play with friends, then eats dinner, and goes to bed. Jinayu gets up earlier than mother, and has been with me these days. If it were in the Zoo family, her mother would usually pay respects to her grandmother at 5 AM, have breakfast after coming back, meet with the stewards, and handle affairs in the mansion, and would not be able to rest until midnight. The same is true for the first and third rooms. In the Zoo family, each family handles their own affairs, so everyone is very busy, but the relationship between the rooms is good. Well, that's it. Nothing special. Mrs. Zhu felt that this life was quite dull. Nothing to say. Mrs. Zhu stroked her hair, thinking about the serious hair loss in the past few days. She felt a little envious of her daughter. If possible, she actually didn't want to take care of so many things. Half of her hair is gone now. After a while, she asked again, "What do you usually eat? Will you be hungry? Do you want to work? Did those maids not make trouble? What do I eat? The food at the Su family is better than what I eat at home. Yesterday I ate fresh shrimp noodles, garlic fried eggplant, mashed potatoes with chicken sauce, dragon bone oyster soup, and a lot of fruits. I don't remember them very well. The food cooked by Nanny is delicious, but mother's is even better." Thinking of her mother's cooking, she couldn't help swallowing her saliva. Looking at her sparkling eyes, Mrs. Zhu twitched her eyes and slapped her. "You girl. How can you let your mother-in-law cook for you? Usually it's the daughter-in-law who cooks." Mrs. Zhu was very aggrieved, "But my cooking is not delicious. No one eats it at all. Why didn't she cook it?" Exclamation mark. After it was served, everyone tasted it, and no one wanted to eat it. Finally, it was thrown to the pig. The pig smelled it for a while and even disliked it. It refused to eat it at all. Seeing that her mother was about to glare at her again, Ruanruan quickly changed the subject. "Mother has a good relationship with the uncles and aunts in the neighborhood. The family always prepares cakes and preserved fruits, so I won't go hungry. I don't have to work." A few days before I got married, mother specially picked out a few maids and asked them to work at home. The two around me. "Mother, why don't you take them back?" In addition to the two big maids, mother also prepared two charming maids for Jinayu, but Jinayu said she would not take concubines. "Forget it, I'll listen to you." Chapter 29 back. When Ruanruan received the news, she told the nanny at home and hurried to Sister Zhu's house. Except for some people who had difficulty taking leave due to something, basically all the contestants came. Several contestants with daughters sat together and cried. "That damn Luzizhao has registered almost all of our daughters, except for the two youngest daughters of Zioai's family who don't have to participate in the draft. The other girls have to go to the capital." Sister Zhu was so angry that she slammed the table hard, with a little confusion in her eyes. The contestants with daughters cried even harder. The barrage also began to get lively. "The contestants in this area are too useless. It's like this, why don't they just rebel?" Exclamation mark. "I see that there is a district next door. Dozens of contestants have joined forces, and now they are recruiting troops. What's that? You can go and watch the live broadcast room 900. His daughter has become the empress. By the way, am I the only one who wants to see what the palace looks like? There is no one in the palace of the empress, and it is full of ghosts. It is different from what is said in history books. Isn't it said that there are many beauties in the palace, which is very interesting?" Ruanruan sighed secretly. Ever since a few maids started teaching their daughters, the contestants would go to listen to the lessons when they were bored. Many times, they have heard about things in the palace. For example, when the emperor is unhappy, he may beat and scold the concubines at will. The high-ranking concubines are okay. After all, their family power is strong, and the emperor dare not do anything. But the low-ranking concubines are the emperor's punching bags. Of course, they are also the punching bags of the high-ranking concubines. There are thousands of concubines in the palace, and the unpopular concubines often have to go hungry. For them, the palace is a man-eating tiger. After thinking for a while, Ruanruan suddenly had an idea. We can ask the maids to see if there is any way to be brushed down, so that we don't have to enter the palace. After that, she hurriedly called a few maids. Seeing this, several crying contestants finally regained their composure. After listening to everyone's request, the maids lowered their heads and pondered. But if you are not selected in the selection, you will not be able to leave the palace. You will be kept in the palace as a maid, and you can only leave the palace when you are 25 years old. The life of maid is even harder than that of a concubine. A concubine of a low rank will at most starve, but a maid will have to be lucky and follow a good master. Otherwise, not to mention starvation, even her life may be lost. When this was said, everyone was shocked. Then you should still be a concubine? Isn't it said that the most feared thing is to be beaten? Sister Zoo's eyes moved, but we have taught fighting skills a long time ago, and my daughter is not so easy to bully. The others nodded one after another. Thanks to the teachings of the maids, their daughters appear to be gentle on the surface, but in fact, each of them can fight 10 people at once. To be honest, many girls' fighting talents are no worse than those of the contestant sons. In this case, let's discuss what to do after we get in. It would be best if we could assign all our daughters to one palace. The contestants and the maids worked together and made dozens of plans in succession. Asterisk a few days later, when several contestants with daughters were packing their luggage, there was a crackling sound of firecrackers outside the yard, which rang from the street to the end of the alley. When they listened with their ears tilted, they found that it was the messenger who came to announce the good news. Ruanruan and the others stood at the door of their house, smiling and asking people to party for the messengers who came to announce the good news, while they stuffed several large purses for them. Congratulations. Young Master Su is really a dragon and phoenix among men. He is already the champion at such a young age. He will surely rise step by step in the future. Touching the silver in his purse, the messenger smiled happily and kept saying auspicious words. The Su family was so happy that they wanted to invite the messenger to dinner, but the messenger still needed to go to other families to announce the good news, so they refused. After sending away the person who brought the good news, Ruanruan waved her hand and said, "Today is a good day. Everyone's monthly salary will be doubled." The maids and nannies of the Su family burst into laughter. And not only did Sujinau pass the exam, except for a few people who fainted in the middle of the exam, the children in the same village also passed the exam. The contestants discussed and decided to go to the capital together. Of course, a few people who had not passed the provincial exam had to stay. Perhaps because of the guards of Luzizhou, the way to the capital was very peaceful. After arriving in the capital, Ruanruan and others watched the little girls enter the palace, and then they put away their worries and began to look for a house in the capital. The capital is much more prosperous than the state capital. There are all kinds of shops on the streets, and all kinds of goods are dazzling. However, the houses here are also very expensive. Buying a 100 square meter yard costs about 1,000 taels, and this location is still in the suburbs of Beijing. And the closer to the palace, the higher the price of the house. Ruanruan and others searched for a long time and finally chose to settle down in the northwest corner of the capital. There are many scholars living here, which is usually quiet. There are several alleys that can quickly reach the palace, which is very suitable for them to live. Several people rented a house for half a year and began to pay attention to the start of the selection and examination. Who knew that a few days later, Sister Zoo's daughter was sent back? The contestants were shocked and hurried to Sister Zoo's house. However, as soon as they entered the door, they heard a shrill voice talking. "Your girl actually dared to steal the noble's things. She is quite courageous. However, the queen is kind-hearted and doesn't want to see blood in the palace, so she let us send her back. You must be grateful." Sister Zoo's voice trembled slightly. My daughter will never steal anything. Don't slander my daughter. The shrill voice sneered. Your daughter's story has spread all over the capital. Who doesn't know what good things she has done? It's not that you say there is nothing. After that, the man lowered the curtain of the carriage and told the driver. The carriage went out of the gate. Ruanruan and others frowned as they watched the carriage leave. After entering, they found that Sister Zoo had burst into tears and fell to the ground, unable to stand up. Looking at the little girl lying on the bed with her eyes closed and pale, and her lower body beaten to a bloody mess, Ruanruan gasped. Several people went to ask for a doctor, boil water, or send someone to inquire about the news, and they were busy separately. When Sister Zoo saw them, she seemed to be relieved at last, and she closed her eyes and fainted. Ruanruan and others were shocked. Fortunately, after the doctor examined them, he said that Sister Zoo and her daughter could be cured, but they just needed to rest for a long time. Chapter 30. Something happened at the Shu mansion. Several of the contestants were detectives, and since the story had spread throughout the capital, it was easy to investigate. It is said that when the daughter of the Zoo family was in the selection, she saw the hairpins and pearls on the noble lady's head, and she became jealous, so she secretly sent someone to steal the jewelry. Who knew that the maid she contacted was caught on the spot. The maid immediately said that it was Zhu Xingxin who instructed behind her. After the maid in the palace learned about it, she reported the matter to the queen and asked whether she should be beaten to death. After the queen learned about it, she couldn't bear to see blood in the palace, so she asked the maid to send Zhu Xingxin away. That's what happened. Anyone with a discerning eye knew that this was a fabricated charge. How could a daughter of an ordinary family have money to bribe a maid to help? Exclamation mark. To put it another way, if she really had money to bribe a maid, she would have a lot of money of her own. Why steal jewelry? Exclamation mark. Ruanruan looked at Zhu Xingxin's face and couldn't help but sigh. Among all their children, Zhu Xingxin should be the most outstanding. Even in the era of cultivating immortals, few people can compare with her appearance. I don't know if it is because of this that she was targeted. A few days later, Ruanruan's guess was confirmed. When Zhu Xingxin's buttocks were not so painful, many small bumps suddenly grew on her face, densely packed, and looked very scary. Ruanruan asked a doctor to come over and found poison sheets in Zhu Xingxin's room. Not only Zhu Xingxin was poisoned, but Sister Zhu was also poisoned. Her poison was more serious than Zhu Xingxin's, and it was the kind that directly took people's lives. Fortunately, Sister Zhu didn't encounter much toxin, so she didn't die on the spot. Seeing Sister Zhu with a pale face, everyone was very angry. Xingxin has been driven out of the palace. They actually want to kill her. Do they really think we are persimmons? It's so infuriating. We really don't want our children to enter the palace, but being framed and driven out of the palace is another matter. I wonder if the children have found out the truth. Forget it. If they are bullied, it is our parents' turn to fight back. I have already investigated. The one who framed Xingxin and poisoned her is the same person, concubine Shuzan in the palace. But she became a concubine because of her beauty. Her father was a 6th rank official in the capital, and it was only after concubine Shuzan became a concubine that she managed to get him an official position. After a few whispers, they went out. A few days later, at night, Shu Mansion. When Master Shu was having fun in his concubine's room, he suddenly heard a terrified scream from the yard next door. He was so scared that he instantly fell limp on the bed, like a puddle of mud. After a long while of resting to regain his strength, he roared, "Why are you making so much noise in the middle of the night? If you are sick, why don't you take medicine?" He took a few deep breaths, stood up cursing, and rushed out in a casual coat. Ever since his daughter became a concubine, his life has been much better. He has the final say in the mansion. Who dares to spoil his fun when he is having fun? Exclamation mark. The more he thought about it, the more unhappy he became. Master Shu decided to teach the troublemakers a lesson. However, as soon as he entered the next yard, he was stunned. He saw several of his concubines in the room, screaming in fear and running around. Unlike their usual sweaty appearance, they were extremely embarrassed at this time. Not only were their clothes and hair messy and covered with dust, they looked like crazy women, but they even lost a shoe or wore fewer socks. They were still shouting, "There's a rat. Help." His face darkened instantly, and he yelled, "What the hell? Stop right now." The concubines, who were in a panic in the room, stopped running for a long time, panting, and put their hands on their chests. "What are you doing? You don't go to bed in the middle of the night, and a bunch of people gathered together, and there are rats. If there are rats, can't you just beat them out?" Master Shu was speechless and scolded them with a sullen face. However, several concubines suddenly screamed again, hugged each other and retreated together. Looking at their frightened eyes, Master Shu looked back. Just this one look, he almost lost his soul. I saw dozens of green eyes flashing in the dark grass. Chiji sound came, and he swallowed his saliva subconsciously. "That is just a rat. There's nothing to be afraid of," he said stubbornly, trying to make a disdainful expression. However, his hands and feet couldn't help shaking. He wanted to run away, but he couldn't lift his feet because he was too scared. People from farming families are generally not afraid of mice, but he had never seen so many mice. They were so dense. The concubines behind him were overjoyed. "Master, since you are not afraid of mice, then you should kill them quickly." Yes. I don't know what happened, but so many mice came to our door. It's so scary." The concubines, who usually fought with each other, suddenly stood on the same front. Two of the concubines pushed him into the group of mice and slammed the door. "Master, do your best. We will secretly watch your heroic figure." A delicate voice came from the room, but Master Shu no longer had the heart to pay attention. He was pushed by the force behind him and fell into the group of mice. He was so scared that his face changed drastically. "Ah, help me," he screamed wildly, stumbled to his feet, and rushed to the main courtyard with all his strength. "Help. Madam, save me." Madam Shu had just fallen asleep. When she heard his hoarse cry, she couldn't help but frown. "Master, it's so late. What's the matter?" She sat up and saw the master rushing in with a look of horror. She thought she had seen a ghost. "Madam, hurry up. Didn't you buy a lot of poison a few days ago? I remember there was still a lot left after using it. Take it out quickly. I want to poison those rats." Madam Shu was puzzled. "What rats?" "There are officials in the capital who specialize in killing rats. The place where we live is inhabited by the gentry. Where can there be rats?" Master Shu pointed outside with a look of fear on his face. "That's them." Looking at the dozens of densely packed eyes outside, Madam Shu screamed, "Quick! Come quickly! Kill all the rats!" She grabbed the hand of the maid and shouted in fear. I don't know if the rats understood what they said, but they became more and more angry and rushed towards them like a cannonball. Mr. Shu and Mrs. Shu dodged left and right, terrified, and even wanted to pull the maids to block it. But for some reason, the rats seemed to have identified them and kept rushing towards them. That night, the Shu couple stayed up all night, fighting wits and courage with the rats. Chapter 31 All Out. When the sun rose, the mice seemed tired, and they squeaked and ran away. Because the mice had not slept all night, the Shu couple felt very angry. "I will not let these damn mice go. I want them to die," Mr. Shu said with heavy dark circles under his eyes, full of resentment, gritting his teeth. Mrs. Shu was also very dissatisfied. "Damn it. I didn't expect that the poison bought from the clinic was useless. This mouse is still alive and kicking. Could it be that the zoo family is still alive? I'm going to the clinic. I won't let that damn quack go." The Shu couple didn't care about resting and immediately got on the carriage. With a gloomy face, one went to find someone from the street department to kill the mice, and the other rushed to the clinic. Under their instructions, the other servants also set off and cleaned the house. At the same time, in the lobby of the Su family, the contestants sat together with serious expressions, as if they were holding an international conference. "Are you sure there's no problem?" "Don't worry, I've already sprayed all these rats with medicine. Even if they bite people, they won't infect people. By the way, you can find a way to sprinkle this yellow powder on the food. After other rats eat the medicine, they won't infect people with the disease anymore. Is this green powder used to attract rats? Then I'll send it to the Shu family. You can go there at night. After eating the medicine I researched, the rats won't go out during the day and will only come out at night to find food. There are many big guys in this area 666. They can research medicine, they are good at fighting, and there are detectives. There are all kinds of talents. People in this area are too lucky, right? Just win by lying down. In fact, there are big guys in many areas, but they are not as united as them. Have you seen the contestants ranked 28 to 38? They are actually very powerful. You can find out by searching on the internet. But they are all lone wolves and don't like to act with others. As a result, several children have just passed the examination and become scholars. Did you watch the Detectives Live broadcast room last night? It feels so funny that they are chased by rats. I wonder if I can still go to see it tonight. That's impossible. I went to Shu's house yesterday because it was the first time to use the medicine and I needed to observe it. Now that there is no problem, the bosses will definitely stay at home. That's right. Climbing on people's roofs every day. Isn't this too disgusting? How can you be a boss? A boss should sit at home and talk and laugh while destroying the masts and doors. Ruanruan and others didn't know what was said in the barrage. They had ended the short meeting and were busy with their own things. Noon. The Imperial Palace, Xianfu Palace. Concubine Shu Xian sat on the chaise longue, looking down at Madame Shu's heavy eye circles, and moved her fingertips slightly. Mom, what's wrong with your eyes? Did dad beat you? Madame Shu complained. Of course not. I don't know what happened last night. A lot of rats suddenly ran out of our house. We were scared to death. The people from the street office went to our house to check, but said there were no rats at all, and asked us not to call them over randomly. How could we lie to them? I think they probably didn't put their heart into it. I wonder if you can ask someone to help. Concubine Shu Xian was very dissatisfied. A small street office dares to look down on me just because I have a poor background. They don't even put their heart into doing things at my mother's house. Her chest heaved violently and she pondered for a while. Mom, don't worry, I will tell the emperor about this. The emperor can solve it with just a word. Madame Shu was immediately relieved, and a smile spread across her face. Your Majesty is still amazing. Concubine Shu Xian nodded slightly. By the way, mother, I asked you to poison the Zhu family. Did it work? The people are dead, right? Madame Shu was stunned. After the poison was administered, she had not paid attention to the matter anymore. How could she know if the person was still alive? However, the doctor in the clinic said that the poison was for humans. It kills mice instantly. Although it cannot kill mice, it can definitely kill the person. Thinking of the doctor's confident look, she patted her chest and said, don't worry, I will do the job. The old woman is gone. Concubine Shu smiled slightly. That's good, mother. The father and mother of the girl from the Zhu family are gone. She is the only one left. She will definitely be sent to the Jiangfang division by the government. You go and arrange for them to send her to be a government prostitute. By the way, don't leave her in the capital. Madame Shu nodded. This dead girl has offended the queen, so I will naturally not let her have an easy life. The mother and daughter looked at each other, and there was a smile in their eyes. Afternoon. Shu Mansion. The people from the street division had serious expressions. Some were holding rat traps, and some were holding sticks. They searched everywhere in the mansion, knocking on the grass and opening the cabinets. Don't be fooled by their serious expressions. They are actually very annoyed. In the morning, the Shu family came to look for them. They said there was a mouse in the house, but they couldn't find it. After searching for so long, they searched the whole house, except for the room of the Shu family master, but they were not allowed to enter the room of Mr. and Mrs. Shu. They said they couldn't find it and went back. Who knew that they were called by the emperor at noon and scolded, saying that they didn't take the Shu family seriously. God knows, they are very attentive. Okay! Exclamation mark. The people in the street department looked at each other secretly, and they all saw that everyone was pretending to be serious. Because when they concentrate on their work, they don't pay attention to the expression on their faces at all, and their bodies will get dirty. But now everyone's expression is exactly the same. Serious, but their clothes are clean. There is no way. If you don't pretend to be serious, you will be scolded again later. It's okay to be scolded, but I'm afraid that the emperor will directly take away their official positions. The master and the lady of the Shu family stood by, and they were very satisfied with their focused looks. Unfortunately, after a whole afternoon, they didn't find even a mouse. What? Exclamation mark. You mean the hole in the wall? Please. Every household has holes in the wall, okay? Even the palace has some small holes and gaps, not to mention the houses outside. Master Shu and his wife were very dissatisfied, and they waved their hands impatiently and drove the people from the street department back. In the evening, after dinner, they sat in the room and waited for a while, but they didn't see any more mice. They were slightly relieved and lay down. Night fell. Ruanruan and her group brought Sister Zhu and her daughter and came to the Shu family together in the shocked eyes of the audience. Shocked my whole family. They are such a large group of people lying on the roof of the house in a row. Are they really not afraid of being discovered? Laughing to death. Everyone went out to watch the fun. Who said in the morning that the big brother would never go to watch again? Right square bracket. Chapter 32 Happy. There was a reason why Ruanruan and others brought Sister Zhu and the others out. The doctor said that they can now do simple activities, but if conditions permit, it is best to keep a good mood so that they can recover faster. So they brought Sister Zhu and her daughter to watch the fun. At this time, the Shu couple slept soundly, thinking that last night was an accident. They didn't know that yesterday was just the beginning, and every day after that, they would be closely chased by mice. Ruanruan and others carried Sister Zhu and her daughter to the roof of the main courtyard. Everyone looked down expectantly. About a few minutes later, the main courtyard was surrounded by a large group of mice. The chirping sound was unusually obvious in the dark. Mrs. Shu, who was lying on the bed, opened her eyes suddenly. Master, did you hear the sound of mice? She sat up in a panic, turned her head and looked around, always feeling that she was not safe anywhere. Mr. Shu rolled his eyes impatiently. What are you doing so late at night? We have waited for so long today and didn't see any mice. What are you afraid of? And just in case, we have locked the doors and windows. Even if there are mice, they will go to find others. How can they hurt us? After hearing this, Mrs. Shu patted her chest and fell asleep uneasily. However, the next second, a mouse suddenly jumped on the curtain of the bed. Ah! Mrs. Shu screamed loudly and hid behind Mr. Shu. But Mr. Shu was also scared. The two of them dragged each other, wanting to hide beside each other, but no one could hide, and they were deadlocked for a while. Finally, Mrs. Shu came to her senses and slapped him hard. Get down quickly. This mouse has been running on the bed, and it can't hide, even if you want to. When they got off the ground, they noticed the mice crawling all over the floor. They actually came out of a small hole in the wall. If a mouse hadn't popped out, they wouldn't have noticed the tiny hole at all. Help. The two were so scared that they rushed to the door and opened it. However, the mice in the yard were also running all over the ground. Mr. Shu and Mrs. Shu looked at the mice in the house and then at the mice in the yard, and they wanted to cry, but had no tears. Someone come. Someone come quickly. Come and beat the mice. The maids and servants who had been driven away heard the noise and hurried over with their weapons. They either carried brooms or held wooden sticks, and some even held firewood sticks, and beat the mice on the ground with all their strength. However, the mice ran very fast, and they didn't hit many mice after beating them for a long time. Instead, they often accidentally hit Mr. Shu and Mrs. Shu, who were standing in the middle. After being swept by the broom for the third time, Master Shu was furious. You bunch of rubbish. I told you to beat the rats, not us. If you don't know how to beat them, don't do it. If you beat me again, I will sell you to the brothel. The maids and servants heard it and dared not to do it again. For a moment, the rats surrounded Master Shu and Mrs. Shu, and they only wanted to go in their direction, but completely ignored the maids and servants around them. The two couldn't help shouting again. You idiots. Can't you see that we are being chased by rats? Don't you know to come up and help? The maids and servants secretly complained. Should they help or not? Mrs. Shu jumped for a while, feeling very tired and sweating. No. If this goes on, I will be exhausted to death. We have to think of a way. She panted and suddenly had an idea. Master, let's go to the rooms of those concubines. They are quiet there. Maybe their rooms don't attract rats. Master Shu agreed very much. The two asked the maids to block the rats, and they rushed to the backyard. Ruanruan and others looked quite speechless, but still followed them to move silently. Inside the house, the concubines of the Shu family were full of resentment. Because the master and the lady saw that they would not be chased by rats, they insisted on changing houses with them. They had to get up in the middle of the night, walk through the dark path, and support each other to the main courtyard. However, not long after lying down, Master Shu and Madam Shu found that the rats were still chasing them. The concubines were called back again to accompany the couple to fight rats. "Hurry up. Kill all the rats for me." Madam Shu asked the maid to protect herself, and then asked the concubines to block them outside. The concubines shook the brooms in their hands, speechless. They were originally mostly unpopular concubines. The master of the family wanted to please concubine Shu Xian, so he sent them to the Shu family. To be honest, in the Shu family, they were really eye-opening. In the original master's house, although they were not favored, they could get some silver jewelry and other things during the new year and festivals, and they would have new clothes all year round, and they could at least have enough to eat. But after coming to the Shu mansion, they were not well fed and well dressed, and they had no new clothes all year round, and they had to mend old clothes. Now, they even had to get up in the middle of the night to beat mice. The concubines looked at each other and saw the speechlessness in each other's eyes. They pretended to wave the brooms beside them until the sky gradually brightened and the mice dispersed. They were finally let go back to sleep. Master Shu and Madam Shu looked dazed, and their steps were a little unsteady when they returned to the room. Regardless of the sweat all over their bodies, they fell directly on the bed. The Shu mansion, which had been noisy all night, finally quieted down. Ruanruan and the others who had been squatting all night also went home to sleep. Asterisk when Ruanruan woke up, a whole day had passed. While waiting for the food to be served, the daughter-in-law showed a gossipy look. "Mom, have you heard? The Shu family offended the rat god." "Rat god?" "Yes. They said there were many rats in their home, and they had to live with relatives and friends. Who knew that the rats also chased them, and many people saw it. Later, those friends were unwilling to take them in. There was no choice, they could only go back to their own home." Ruanruan raised her eyebrows. At this time, the food was served one after another. Jinai rubbed her messy hair and walked out of the study yawning. The three of them sat together and slowly began to eat. When Ruanruan was halfway through eating, she suddenly felt like vomiting. She quickly turned her face away and stretched out her hand to cover her mouth. Ruanruan and her son were both shocked. "What's wrong with you? Are you feeling uncomfortable? I'll ask someone to get a doctor." Jinai was startled and quickly asked the maid to find a doctor. Ruanruan looked at the fish in her bowl, thinking about something, and handed her a glass of warm water. After the doctor's examination, his originally nervous face relaxed immediately. "Congratulations, madam, your young lady is pregnant." Chapter 33 Catch. Ruanruan is in good health, and so is her child. After the doctor finished speaking, Ruanruan was stunned for a moment. This experience of being a grandmother is so rare. After a while, she reacted, gave the doctor a purse, sent the person to the carriage, and then gave the people below 2 months of reward silver. The whole Shu mansion was overjoyed. Not long after, the results of the selection came out, and it was time for the boys in the family to take the imperial examination. According to the results, all the girls in the family were selected as concubines. Most of them were the lowest ranking promises, and the highest position was a noble, which was not bad. And they also thought of a way, and now they are all assigned to the same palace. Ruanruan and others were relieved when they learned about this. The combined force of these girls is enough to force the palace. It's a pity that they don't have any power in the court. Now that they occupy the palace, it's useless. It's just to make wedding clothes for others. And the results of the imperial examination are also very gratifying. All the boys passed and became tribute scholars. According to convention, all those who passed the joint examination will pass the palace examination, but they just don't know whether they will be ranked first, second or third. The palace examination followed the results of the joint examination. Ruanruan and others waited patiently for a few days and soon got the final result. Madam, great news. The young master passed the exam and won the first place. Ruanruan was shocked when she heard the excited voice of the nanny. When she was about to wear it, she also took the imperial examination in the world of women and knew that it was not so easy to win the first place. Unexpectedly, her son could win the first place. What about the others in our village? What are their rankings? The first and third places are all from our village. The others are also second class jinshi. You don't have to worry, the nanny said happily. She originally thought that most of these children could only pass the third class tong jinshi, but she didn't expect that all of them passed the second class jinshi. Madam and others are really amazing to be able to teach so many outstanding children. Ruanruan and others smiled happily. Jinyu has gone to the palace to receive the order. She walked around the room twice and seemed to have thought of something and immediately went to the kitchen to cut the ingredients. Let's have hot pot today. Let's celebrate. Shu family. Mr. Shu and Mrs. Shu, who were sleeping soundly on the bed, frowned and seemed to be sleeping uncomfortably. After a long time, Mrs. Shu opened her eyes and sat up. Master, go outside and see why it's so noisy. This wedding has been going on for too long, right? Hurry up and let them be quiet. We still need to sleep. Mr. Shu replied in a daze. Well, anyway, they are not noisy. Let them be. Hoo-hoo. Seeing him sleeping soundly, Mrs. Shu couldn't help but grit her teeth. Whether it was windy or rainy, the master slept so soundly. But she was not like that. A little noise would make her sleep bad. She scratched her hair irritably and climbed up. She put on a coat casually, rushed to the yard, put her hands on her waist and shouted, "Come here." The maids ran over from the next yard and stood in front of her. Go. Capture the people outside and send them to the government office. You are disturbing people's sleep in broad daylight and are asking for trouble. When you go to the government office, remember to explain clearly to me that you dared to offend our Shu family and must be severely punished. Her face was livid and the white coat she was wearing fluttered. If it wasn't in broad daylight, the maids might really think they saw a ghost. The maids shrank back, swallowed their saliva, and after answering in unison, they ran to the door with a large group of servants. As soon as they walked out of the door, they saw a long team that was almost at the end. In the distance, they could see the back of a horse, and behind the horse followed two teams, each holding a piece of red silk in their hands. The red silk was very long, and dozens of people passed by the door holding red silk, and the end of the red silk could not be seen. The common people nearby poked their heads out to join in the fun, cheering from time to time. The maids and servants whispered to each other. Then it should be the groom, right? Strange. Shouldn't the sedan chair be behind the groom? How can there be such a rule? The sedan chair can be in the front or in the back, it doesn't matter. After waiting for a while, seeing that the team carrying the red silk finally reached the end, the leading maid gave an order, go. The servants decisively went around from the back and caught the few people who were carrying the red silk at the back. There were quite a few servants, and they were very efficient, whether they knocked people out or tied them up. In one go, they caught a total of 10 people. The team in front did not notice the commotion behind, but the common people following behind saw it. They were shocked. Why are you arresting them? The servants waved their hands. Don't ask. This is the master's order. After that, the servants lifted up the 10 people and walked towards the government office in a mighty manner. Onlookers. Many people even became interested in this matter. Anyway, they had seen enough of the excitement in the previous incident, so they simply followed these servants and walked all the way to the government office. The servants threw several people who were knocked unconscious to the ground. Mr. Zhao, these people are making trouble at the gate of our mansion and disturbing our wife's rest. Tell me what to do. The captain of the servants put his hands on his waist, his expression serious and calm. The governor of Kyoto lowered his head and looked at the familiar people on the ground, then raised his head and looked at these servants, dumbfounded. The onlookers outside also widened their eyes. The governor opened his mouth and found his voice for a long time. Who are you? My wife. The captain of the servants raised his chin and shouted, our wife is from the Shu family. The governor of Kyoto gasped. Shu family? Which other Shu family is there in the whole capital? There is only one Shu family. Damn it. Looking at the unconscious guard on the ground, the governor of Kyoto cursed in his heart. This matter involves the Shu family, so he still has to ask the emperor for his opinion. What if the emperor wants to side with the Shu family? Thinking of this, he said, "Wait a moment, everyone. I'll tell the emperor about this and see what the rules are." The servants all knew that concubine Shu was favored, so they felt more relieved after hearing this. Then leave this matter to the adults. We'll go back first. The governor of Kyoto watched them walk away with a smile and hurried into the palace. That afternoon, concubine Shu, who had always been favored, was scolded. The harem was shocked. The Shu family was also scolded by the eunuchs sent by the emperor. After the eunuchs left, Master Shu and Madam Shu blamed each other. "Look at you. What a stupid thing you did. It's not a wedding at all. It's the #1 scholar riding a horse in the street. And you let people arrest the guards following behind." Chapter 34 Approaching the capital. Madam Shu was very angry. How would I know that they were guards from the capital? They weren't wearing guard uniforms. And the servants didn't come to tell me. Didn't you give the order? Otherwise, how could they run out to catch people? Master Shu pointed at her nose, his hands trembling slightly. "You foolish woman. Now we are all embarrassed because of the stupid thing you did. I'm afraid that even the empress in the palace will be scolded. What should we do?" Madam Shu became anxious when talking about her daughter, her eyes full of panic. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. "Oh right. I remember a few days ago, the queen asked me to see if the old woman of the Zhu family was dead. If she was dead, I would quickly find someone from the government to take her daughter away. I will go to the Zhu family now to see if..." Stupid. There must be a lot of people staring at our family at this time. If you go to trouble people now, won't it give them a handle? How many people in the palace are jealous of our daughter? You should stay at home and don't cause more trouble for the queen. Mrs. Shu pinched the handkerchief and her voice was filled with tears. "Then what else can we do?" Master Shu sighed deeply, looking tired. "Don't do anything. We can only wait for the emperor to slowly calm down." The Shu family, which had never been reprimanded by the emperor, finally fell silent. Ruanruan and others were also busy at this time and had no time to pay attention to them. The 3 people in the first class were directly left in the Hanlin Academy in the capital, and the people in the second class basically had to go to different places to serve. Asterisk spring and autumn. 3 years have passed. Jinsao, Zhu family. Madame Zhu second looked at the carriages in front of the door, and the smile on her lips could not be suppressed. Madame Zhu Da, who was passing by, saw it and was a little envious. "Sister-in-law, your son-in-law sent you something again." Seeing the tired look on her sister-in-law's face, Madame Zhu second restrained her smile and greeted everyone. "Sister-in-law, it was my mother-in-law who sent me a letter asking me to go to the capital to play." Madame Zhu Da was stunned for a moment and then smiled and nodded after a long while. "It's good to go out for a walk occasionally. There's nothing to do at home." The two said a few words and then went their separate ways. Back in the room, Madame Zhu second's maid was very puzzled. "Madam, why didn't you smile when Madam came over just now?" Madame Zhu second shook her head. "In the future, when the son-in-law sends something, you can just pull it directly from the back door to our second room. The son-in-law of the sister-in-law and the sister-in-law's family are obviously in Jinsao, but they seem to be dead. Their daughters rarely go home, and they only give gifts during festivals, but the gifts are also chosen by the elders in the family. Unlike their family, the son-in-law often sends things back and sends letters more frequently, sending several letters a month. In the entire Zhu family, only the son-in-law of their second house is different, so there is really no need to make others jealous." Thinking of this, she opened the letter sent by her daughter, and when she learned that her son-in-law is now a third-rank official, she was so happy that she couldn't close her mouth. At the same time, the first house. Mrs. Zhu sat in the room with lifeless eyes, looking at the pool outside the window, and said faintly, "Mammy, do you think I did something wrong? If I had known. I now understand why the second brother's wife chose such an ordinary son-in-law. Her son-in-law is much better than the one we chose." The nanny rubbed her shoulders distressedly. "Madam, don't worry, the second lady is also lucky. Didn't someone in Jinsao choose some scholars for their daughters?" Those people still took concubines, and they didn't treat their wives and father-in-law's family very well. Mrs. Zhu sighed, forget it. This is fate. Asterisk Beijing, restaurant, private room on the second floor. The matchmaker sat in the middle, with Sister Zhu and Zhu Xingxin sitting on her left, and a serious looking woman in purple with her son on her right. Her son was wearing a purple robe, and holding a paper fan, looking gentle and refined. The matchmaker smiled and introduced the two of them separately. The introduction was simple, only saying the surnames of both parties. The surname of the woman opposite was Zhuang. Madame Zhuang looked Zhu Xingxin up and down, as if to see if pork was fat or not, and nodded after a while. The little girl is pretty. What do you like to do at home? Zhu Xingxin smiled politely. I like to practice martial arts and sword at home. Master Zhuang frowned immediately. It's not right for a girl to practice martial arts and sword at home. No. After you marry in, you can't do these things anymore. Just play the piano and sing songs at home. Madame Zhuang shook her head. That won't do. The wife needs to take care of things. How can she play every day? Has the little girl learned to be a housekeeper at home? Sister Zhu interrupted them. My girl is good at learning anything. Housekeeping is naturally a piece of cake. But your master, what are your plans for the future? Are you preparing for the imperial examination? Or are you going to find a job? What nonsense are you talking about? Our child is not from an ordinary family. There is no need to take the imperial examination. Madame Zhuang looked at her strangely, as if she saw the sun rising in the west. What do you think of our family? Matchmaker. You should tell them what our status is. The matchmaker's eyes twitched. She forced a smile. Yes, this Madame Zhuang is a relative of concubine Shuzan in the palace. That's right. Madame Zhuang nodded gently. I'm the second aunt of the daughter of the eldest brother of concubine Shuzan's sister-in-law. In the future, tell the queen in the palace that there is no official position that my son can't get. Let's talk about your family. Sister Zhu and Zhu Xingxin suddenly raised their heads and looked at them strangely. A quarter of an hour later, at the door of the inn. Bah. You can't marry my son, but you beat him. Who wants this tigress in your family to come in? Madame Zhuang spat on the ground angrily. Zhu Xingxin raised his fist. Master Zhuang was startled and quickly pulled his mother away. Before leaving, they threatened, just wait. I want you to have no chance in the capital. In the evening, when Sister Zhu complained about this to everyone couldn't help laughing. Fortunately, Zhu Xingxin was used to it and didn't care at all. She went out to ride horses and practice sword as usual and was very happy. Seeing Zhu Xingxin so happy every day, Sister Zhu was relieved. Forget it. I'm too lazy to find a son-in-law anymore. I haven't found a suitable one in 3 years. It's too difficult. At most, I can get a lower score in the first assessment. As long as the child is happy. A few days later, the sky was clear. It was obviously a good day, but there was silence in the Golden Throne Hall. The veins on the Emperor's forehead were throbbing, and he glared at the courtiers below. Are they all trash? The 3 states in the north have been taken down. We just received the news now. They are approaching the capital. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 General Zhu. The Emperor's chest rose and fell violently, and a sneer appeared at the corner of his lips. You are really great. Should I thank you for receiving the news before we even reach the capital? The courtiers lowered their heads, like a group of stone statues, and remained silent. In fact, they didn't react yet. There has always been a general stationed in the north. Logically, it shouldn't be so easy to be conquered. And 3 states were conquered at once. There are only 10 states in their country, which means that 1/3 of the territory was conquered at once. This speed is simply too fast! Exclamation mark. A month ago, a letter was sent from the border saying that everything was fine. Su Jinyu frowned. The general's ancestors were all from the capital, and his wife and children were all in the capital. It was impossible for him to betray the country. Now that 3 states in the north have been conquered, he is probably in danger. In the evening, Sujinayu told his family the news and urged them to pack up quickly. Ruanruan shook her head. Second mother, take the children back to Jinsao. It should be much safer there. I want to stay here. Are you kidding? Exclamation mark. Sujinayu is a court official. It is impossible for her to leave if the North really attacks. Although Sujinayu is strong, he is far inferior to her and can't stop thousands of troops. She even has grandchildren. If she leaves at this time, her son will be in trouble and her mission will fail. She must vomit blood. Zu's second mother also shook her head desperately. Niang and Jinayu have always been very good to her. Of course, she doesn't want to leave them at this time. In the end, no one left. They could only write a letter to remind the Zu family and the people in the same village to run away quickly. Asterisk in the southern prefecture, the governor was handling the last affairs and preparing to hand over to the next governor. Suddenly, an official suddenly pushed the door and ran over in a hurry, waving an envelope in his hand. Sir, your friend has a letter from the capital. The governor stood up, took the envelope and opened it, and pressed down the corners of his mouth hard, so as not to laugh too exaggeratedly. Oh, why did you write to me at this time? Am I not going back to Beijing soon? Aunt Su is so annoying. She can't wait for such a short time. Looking at the contents of the letter, the smile on his face completely disappeared. He read the whole letter seriously, and his expression suddenly became ugly. There was a fight in the north! Exclamation mark. Although Aunt Su told him to try not to go to Beijing, his appointment had already been made. The official glanced at his gloomy face and asked cautiously, Sir, is there anything I can do for you? The prefect clenched the letter in his hand and said expressionlessly, Nothing, you can go down. He stood in front of the window, his eyes deep. The same scene happened all over the country. And at this time in Beijing, the atmosphere began to become tense. At the city gate, the government office gate, and various offices, officials kept announcing notices issued by the court. They shouted at the top of their lungs, conscription. Conscription begins now. Young men, it's time for you to contribute. We are in danger now. The propaganda by the officials was very effective. Within a few days, the whole capital knew about the conscription. People were talking about it. Conscription. Is there a war going on somewhere? Why are we conscripting soldiers in the capital? Didn't we conscript soldiers from nearby places in the past? Don't you know yet? I heard that they have already reached Jinsao, and Jinsao is next to our capital. Otherwise, why would they conscript soldiers everywhere? Oh my god. How is this possible? Aren't there 3 big states in the north? Don't even think about it. They have already been conquered by the barbarians in the north. This news was told to me by my uncle in Jinsao. It must be true. The people in the capital each had their own ways. After hearing the news that the north was about to invade the capital, they actually packed up their bags and fled. At first, the guards guarding the city gates didn't notice it. After all, the gates of the capital have always been crowded with people. It was not until a few days later, facing the suddenly empty capital, that the emperor and his ministers finally realized something was wrong. Faced with such an embarrassing situation, everyone was a little at a loss for a moment. In the court, the emperor sat on the dragon throne, his soul flying away, and the court officials lowered their heads silently, like a group of statues. In the silence, Sujinayu thought of Zhu Xingxin who was fighting outside every day, and suddenly an idea came to his mind. Your Majesty, most of the people who escaped from the capital are strong men, but most of the elderly, children and women stayed behind. Why not use female soldiers? As soon as Sujinayu's words came out, an old antique immediately spoke up to obstruct. Your Majesty, absolutely not. How can women go to the battlefield? A military officer helped to speak. Your Majesty, when I was fighting on the border, many women would also pick up knives and chop people together. Their fighting power should not be underestimated. I think Lord Su's idea is feasible. No. Let women go out to fight. This is too embarrassing. How can you have the nerve to live? Several old ministers firmly opposed it. Do you want to lose face or lose your life? If we don't let women go to the battlefield, are we just waiting for the army from the north to attack us? There are not many who can go to the battlefield in the whole capital now. For a while, everyone was arguing. The emperor shouted, "Shut up. Seeing that the court officials had quieted down, he pondered for a while and decided, recruit. Female soldiers are female soldiers. As long as they can fight on the battlefield, why bother about whether they are male or female? He lowered his eyes and thought to himself, I have to pack up and run away quickly. It's just right to use those female soldiers to block them. I hope they can hold on for a while. Asterisk half a year later. Report. Your Majesty, a great victory in the north. We have taken back the 3 states. The emperor sitting on the dragon throne was overjoyed. He said 3 times in a row and laughed. This time it's all thanks to General Zhu. She is a great hero. I want to make her the general of the cavalry. If General Zhu hadn't appeared in time, he would have abandoned the capital and fled. The court officials were shocked, and their original joy had dissipated a lot. Your Majesty. No. The position of general of the cavalry is a first-rank official position. How can a woman like her be qualified for it? An official standing in the second row stepped out to stop them. He himself was only a second-rank official. If that woman became a first-rank official, wouldn't he have to salute her when he saw her in the future? Exclamation mark. Many officials followed suit. Sujinayu and several other people from the same village looked at each other inconspicuously, and someone immediately stepped out to speak for Zhu Xingxin. Your Majesty, General Zhu has worked hard and made great contributions. If it weren't for her, we would have been conquered long ago. We can't let down the heroes. They should be rewarded. As soon as these words came out, a hint of displeasure flashed in the emperor's eyes. Sujinayu knew it was not good at first sight. The emperor usually suppressed military officers, and once a civil official supported Zhu Xingxin, he became worried again. Fortunately, at this time, several old ministers made a bigger fuss and diverted the emperor's attention in time. Chapter 36, Expressionless. The old ministers were firmly opposed to letting Zhu Xingxin become a first-rank general of cavalry. However, several people from Sujinayu's village wanted Zhu Xingxin to be a general. The 2 sides argued fiercely. The emperor noticed that several people who spoke for Zhu Xingxin were civil officials, and he became alert. Sujinayu noticed the haze in the emperor's eyes, gestured behind him, stepped forward, and bowed, saying, Your Majesty, what the adults said makes sense. General Zhu is already a second-rank general of the country. If he moves up again, he will be a first-rank official. There are not many first-rank officials in the entire capital. Even if he has made contributions, such a reward is too much. At this point, he glanced at the emperor on the dragon throne inconspicuously and found that the emperor secretly agreed in his eyes, and he immediately felt relieved. But the general of the cavalry is indeed our pillar of support. The previous general of the cavalry was assassinated, and now we can't do without the general of the cavalry. Why not let the other generals be promoted? Many generals have contributed to this war, and they are also men. I think you adults will not have any objections, right? Several old ministers stroked their beards, looked at Sujinayu with appreciation, and nodded. The emperor was dissatisfied again. When the previous general of the cavalry was still there, he often worried that the man would rebel against him, and later he sent people to monitor the general. In fact, he knew that the general was poisoned. After all, many of his people were planted in the army below. But because he was afraid that the general of the cavalry would rebel, he did not stop it and let things develop. Who would have thought that, just because there was no leader, the army below was so useless that 3 prefectures were taken down at once? If it weren't for the fact that the soldiers of Jinsao were strong enough, they could barely block the invasion from the north. In short, the general of the cavalry is indeed necessary. Otherwise, the army below is too outrageous. The people were also terrified every day. But compared to a man, he still felt that it was more appropriate to let Zhu Xingxin be the general. After all, how could a woman rebel? Exclamation mark. Thinking of this, he insisted on his own opinion. No. General Zhu is the one who made the greatest contribution this time. If she is not made the general of the cavalry, but someone else is promoted, what is this? Won't everyone be unwilling to work in the future? After that, he ordered the people in the Ministry of Rights to prepare the Imperial Edict, wait for General Zhu to come back, and announce the edict immediately. I want to let everyone in the world know that here, everything must be rewarded according to merit, not men and women. After that, He announced the adjournment of the court and left the court without hesitation. No one noticed that Sujinai and others raised their lips slightly. Asterisk the harem, the pepper room. Several concubines sat together, with stacks of exquisite snacks and tea on the table, and all the palace maids withdrew. Truth or dare? I choose truth. Okay, the questioner's eyes lit up immediately, and the corners of his mouth smiled. Did you sneak out last night? I heard the noise in your room. The girl being questioned smiled and said, most of us ran out last night, didn't you know? Yesterday was the Lantern Festival. The streets were so beautiful. What's so good about it? When I was in Jinsao, I was tired of seeing it. The questioner thought she was doing something bad, and he was speechless when he heard this, and he had no interest at all. Hey, you don't know this. There are many kinds of lanterns in Beijing, and there are also ice lanterns. They feel cool to the touch and very beautiful. Ice lanterns? When several people were chattering, there was a sound of footsteps outside. They suddenly became quiet, and their originally crooked sitting postures became serious and dignified. Some people held tea bowls, some gently picked up a piece of cake, and some stroked their hair. If someone who didn't know came in and saw this scene, they would only think that this was a picture of a group of concubines having a meeting. Your Majesty, the Emperor is here. The head maid of the pepper room breathed slightly, and her eyes quickly swept across the entire palace. After confirming that there was nothing that shouldn't be there, she was relieved. The people sitting on the chairs looked at each other, and there was a hint of surprise in their eyes. At this time, a man strode in, his eyes full of joy. My beloved concubine. I'm here. When he saw a large group of concubines gathered together, he was stunned for a moment. Why are there so many people here? The imperial concubine smiled lightly. Your Majesty, what are you talking about? You haven't come to the harem for so long, so I had to call my sisters to play. After that, she secretly winked. You go back first. Several concubines lowered their heads and bowed silently to leave. Seeing that everyone had left, the emperor heaved a sigh of relief and hugged the imperial concubine. Imperial concubine, how come it's been so long and you haven't conceived my child yet? It would be great if we had a child. The imperial concubine was his beloved woman. If possible, he certainly wanted the son of his beloved woman to inherit the throne, not someone else's child. When the imperial concubine heard this, a faint smile appeared at the corner of her lips. Really? If the emperor knew that his sons were not his own, he would probably collapse. The problem is that the emperor's body really has problems and he can't have children at all. Your Majesty, it's all my fault that my body is not doing well. The imperial concubine lowered her head and shed tears silently. Seeing that she was crying, the emperor didn't want to show an anxious expression, so he coaxed her patiently again and again. The imperial concubine looked at him with eyes full of smiles. There was a faint aroma in the incense burner. In the next few days, the emperor went out to play every day. Today he drank tea and watched a play with concubine Shu. Tomorrow he played in the water with concubine Hui, and the day after tomorrow he invited several concubines to dance and play music. Life was really wonderful. That night, when he passed by the lotus pond, he suddenly heard two furtive voices. Hey, is this really the case? It sounded like they were talking about a secret, and the emperor suddenly became interested. He stopped the eunuch who wanted to interrupt them loudly behind him, and motioned for everyone to listen together. The emperor has a physical problem, and cannot give birth to children. The children in the palace are not his. This is indeed true. No way. How did you know? Another person gasped, and said in shock. Alas. Everyone in the imperial hospital knows about this. It was the late emperor who insisted on hiding it from the emperor, and he also deliberately relaxed the guards in the harem. Didn't you notice that there are very few guards in the harem of this dynasty? What? So that's the case. Then, the concubines in the palace. Alas. Only the concubines selected in the latest election don't know about this. The concubines in the front are actually very clear about it. The older eunuchs basically know about this, so you don't have to be so surprised. The emperor had a blank expression. The eunuchs behind him were sweating profusely. Chapter 37. It's you. The emperor did not arrest the eunuch who gossiped, but left silently. When he returned to the Golden Dragon Palace, His expression was very cold, his eyes were dark, and it was impossible to tell what he was thinking. The cold sweat on the eunuch's forehead kept dripping down. His eyes flashed, and he asked tentatively, "Your Majesty, those two people might have been deliberately arranged by someone. I will have them arrested right away." "No." A hint of coldness flashed in the emperor's eyes. "Xiao, go and check if what he said is true. Are the princes and princesses in the palace really not my children?" Xiao's back was instantly soaked with sweat, and he bowed his head and saluted. "Yes." In the darkness, only the candles in the palace were burning. A few days later, a shocking event occurred. All the princes and princesses in the palace were poisoned. The entire harem was in chaos. The concubines with children knelt in front of the palace, their eyes swollen from crying. "Your Majesty, our prince has been murdered. You must not let those bitches off. It must have been done by those hens that can't lay eggs. They can't give birth themselves, but they chose to murder our children. Your Majesty, please look at our princess. She's almost dying. Please see her for the last time." The crying was deafening, and even the court hall separated by several walls could hear their heart-wrenching voices. In the court, Xiao lowered his head silently. The emperor's face became more and more gloomy, and all the ministers were as quiet as chickens. At this time, an old minister suddenly stepped out. "Your Majesty, in the palace, the princes and princesses can be harmed. I suggest that someone should be sent to the palace to investigate carefully. If it is found that any concubines have made a move." Bang! A thick memorial was thrown directly on the old minister's forehead. The sharp corner of the memorial hit his forehead. A blood mark slid down his head. He was shocked, and his eyes widened. "Your Majesty, what? You want to interfere in my family affairs so much? I will naturally reciprocate." The emperor raised the corner of his mouth with a fake smile. "Come here, Lord Win is old. Let him go back and have a good rest. Don't work so hard." Two guards covered the old minister's mouth and dragged him away. The court officials were as quiet as chickens, as if they didn't see the scene. "If you have something to say, please report it. If you don't have anything to say, please leave the court," Xiao sang loudly. Seeing that no one said anything, the emperor flicked his sleeves and left. The ministers looked at each other and exchanged a few words with different thoughts. Sujinayu mixed in the crowd. His eyes flashed unconsciously. Asterisk in the harem. In the pepper room. The fragrance of the incense burner in the corner was faint, but the room was terribly quiet. A group of concubines sat together. All of them were dumbfounded, and this expression had lasted for 10 minutes. But the picture seemed to be still, and no one moved. After a long while, the imperial concubine moved her stiff body and finally opened her mouth. "How could it be? Did someone of ours do it?" The others seemed to have suddenly pressed the start button and began to discuss. "Didn't I say it's not time yet? I never talked to the palace people about the princes and princesses. How did the emperor know about this? It seems that this is really an accident." Concubine Hui rubbed her temples, her face full of helplessness. "We were going to save this for later, but we didn't expect the emperor to find out so soon. It's normal. Think about it carefully. We found out about the princes and princesses not long after we entered the palace. There must be a lot of people in the palace who know about this. Then don't we have to change our plan? We took so much trouble to prepare before. Send a message outside the palace. See what they are planning, and by the way, tell them clearly about the emperor poisoning the princes and princesses. Remember to use code words." The imperial concubine sighed and said helplessly. Everyone was shocked. "What? It was the emperor who poisoned the princes and princesses?" The imperial concubine was stunned for a moment. "Why? You don't know yet? It's easy to imagine that the princes and princesses were all fine before, and they were protected tightly. Now something happened all of a sudden. Only the emperor could do this. And the emperor just happened to know that he was cuckolded." The concubines looked at each other with surprise in their eyes. "Is he crazy? Without a prince, isn't he afraid of losing his throne?" "He's not crazy. I'm afraid he knows it very well. Now there is no one in the royal family except him. Even if all his sons and daughters died, he is not afraid." After discussing for a whole morning, several people started writing letters, but unfortunately none of them could be sent out. The emperor has ordered the entire palace to be sealed off. not to mention letters. Even a fly can't fly out. And when the emperor ordered a search for the person who poisoned, the imperial doctors couldn't cure the princes and princesses and could only watch them leave one by one. The emperor was furious and ordered all the doctors in the imperial hospital to be beheaded. The imperial concubine and others realized something was wrong and immediately closed the palace gates and hid in their own palaces, pretending that nothing had happened. In just a few days, the palace was cleaned up. Basically, the older eunuchs and maids disappeared, and there were only a few medicine boys who had no medical skills left in the imperial hospital. Even many of the veteran concubines were beheaded, and it was said that they were poisoned to murder the princes and princesses. The entire harem was hung with white cloth, which looked extremely depressing. On this day, the head maid Fiki hurried in with a flash of panic in her eyes. "Your Majesty, the Queen Mother was too sad because the princes and princesses left, and she vomited blood and fainted." The imperial concubine stood up quickly. Fiki followed the imperial concubine and knew a lot of things. At this moment, she was already panicking. The Queen Mother usually didn't care about the princes and princesses at all. How could she vomit blood and faint because of them? Exclamation mark. It's probably the emperor. If the empress is also dealt with by the emperor, the next highest position will be the imperial concubine. The imperial concubine took a deep breath and forced herself to calm down. She crossed her arms and pondered for a while and suddenly understood why the emperor wanted to attack the empress. She couldn't help but relax. Calm down. Nothing will happen. If something happens to the empress, we should follow the usual practice of previous years and do what we should do. Fiki finally calmed down when she saw her calm expression. Since entering the palace, she has followed the empress, and the empress has never taken a wrong step. She believes that the empress will be fine. She bowed and saluted. "Yes, empress." The imperial concubine changed into plain clothes and took Fiki to Cunning Palace. At this time in Cunning Palace, the palace maids and eunuchs were in chaos, and several maids were crying. Seeing the imperial concubine, the maid went in to report the news. A maid who was kneeling in front of the palace suddenly rushed out and glared at the imperial concubine with hatred. "It's you. It must be you who killed the empress. Don't think that you can become the empress just because the empress is gone." Chapter 38. 3 days later, the imperial concubine was innocent. Fiki quickly stood in front of the nanny and said, "Nonsense. The empress was ill, and our empress came to visit with good intentions, but you slandered her like this." "Good intentions? Bah. Who asked you to be so hypocritical? You have already taken away the power of the empress, and you want to force her to death." The nana's face was full of hatred, as if she wanted to eat the imperial concubine. "Who else could it be if not you? I tell you, the empress is the daughter of a noble family, and you, who are born in a peasant family, should never dream of becoming the empress." The imperial concubine secretly twitched her eyes. "Who wants to be the empress?" Exclamation mark. There is so much work to do every day, and she has to deal with even the smallest things, and the salary is just a little higher than her current salary. Do you really think that the empress position is a good thing? Exclamation mark. Yes, the affairs of the empress have been handed over to her a long time ago, but aren't they handed over to everyone in turn? Something happened to the empress, and I'm very sad, so I came to visit her. She took a deep breath and smiled softly. "Bitch. Get out of here. Don't disturb the empress." The nanny slapped her hard. The imperial concubine was furious and was about to fight back, but she heard a slight noise not far away. She unseen the jade in front of her and went forward. Pa. The slap was crisp and loud. The imperial concubine lowered her head and sobbed. "Nanny, why do you misinterpret my good intentions? I'm really worried about the empress, so I came here. It is because of you damn vixens that the empress fell ill. You." The nanny's eyes were bloodshot, and she was so angry that blood was dripping from her eyes. When she was about to hit the imperial concubine again, she was suddenly pulled back. "Get out. Who dares to stop me?" She tried hard to break free, but did not notice that the person holding her was wearing the uniform of the Imperial Guard. "It's me." A cold shout came from the side. The man in the bright yellow dragon robe walked over expressionlessly. After seeing the redness and swelling on the imperial concubine's face, He flew into a rage and kicked her. What a thing. A slave dares to lay hands on the imperial concubine. The maid was startled, and after being kicked to the ground, she quickly got up and knelt. Your Majesty, look at the Empress. The imperial concubine is still gloating at this time. How can you do this? The Empress is your first wife. The imperial concubine lowered her head, covering the helplessness in her eyes. The emperor was probably planning to liquidate all the concubines in the palace. The more this old maid talked about first wife, the more annoyed the emperor became. Sure enough, the emperor was furious. Come here. Disrespect the imperial concubine. Drag this old man away and give him 50 lashes. The palace maids and eunuchs who were watching were all shocked. 50 lashes, this is a direct death. Your Majesty, please calm down. That's the Empress's wet nurse, who has nursed the Empress since she was a child. Please spare her this time for the Empress' sake. A wet nurse knelt down and begged for mercy. The emperor was merciless. Drag her away. Several eunuchs immediately stepped out, pressed the wet nurse on a stool, took a board, and started beating her without any mercy. Looking at their skilled movements, it was clear that they had done this a lot in the past few days. The palace maids and eunuchs looked at the imperial concubine with shock and fear, full of pleading. Imperial concubine, we were wrong. Spare us. Imperial concubine and his majesty, please beg us, spare us. We will never dare to disrespect the empress again. The imperial concubine lowered her head. The emperor was about to take action against them, and her incident was just an excuse. But considering her own personality, she still frowned slightly and made a pleading look. Your Majesty, there is too much blood in the palace. Isn't it too unlucky? He thought for a while. Well, then drag the people outside to deal with them. I don't want to see these people again. Zio Shunzi, you go and watch. Yes. Zio Shunzi bowed his head and saluted. The maids and eunuchs in the queen's palace were full of despair. Asterisk it was night, and the breeze was blowing. The lights in the pepper room were still on. The imperial concubine sat on the imperial concubine chair with a solemn expression. Suddenly, there was a slight creaking sound from the roof. Her eyes moved slightly. Face UI, you go down. So many things happened today. There is no need to guard me. Have a good rest, and starting tomorrow, remember to guard the pepper room, lest anyone attack us. The two senior maids looked at each other, thinking of what happened during the day. They couldn't help but frown slightly, and saluted and retreated together. As soon as they left, Ruanruan appeared in front of the imperial concubine like a gust of wind. Seeing the person coming, the imperial concubine was stunned at first, and then hugged Ruanruan with tears in her eyes. Aunt Su. After hugging for a long time, she suddenly realized something, and became a little nervous. Aunt Su, you sneaked in here. You are not injured? Recently, the guards of the palace have been much stricter, and we can't go out. Ruanruan waved her hand carelessly. Don't worry, they can't find me yet. The children at home are all learning fighting skills from the interstellar people, not light skills, so it is really troublesome to go out now. You haven't heard from you for several days, and the family is very worried, so I came here. She glanced at the luxurious furnishings around her, and felt a little relieved. How is it? Has anything happened recently? The imperial concubine sighed, and told her about what happened in the past few days. The quiet barrage exploded instantly. They actually killed all the princes and princesses. Some princes are 10 years old and have lived for so long. Doesn't the emperor have any feelings? You have been cuckolded. Try to see if you have feelings. The people in this palace were basically killed by the emperor. I think he's gone crazy. Why don't the contestants take their children and run away? Exclamation mark. As if she had a telepathic connection with the barrage, the imperial concubine pondered for a while, a little worried. Actually, I'm a little afraid that the emperor will do something to us. Aunt Su, are we going to run away? Ruanruan twitched her eyes. I can only take one person to transfer at a time. There are so many of you. I'm afraid we will be discovered before I take you all out of the palace. She pondered for a while and left a signal for the imperial concubine. If there is any danger, you will pull the signal, and then we will rush directly into the palace. We will take action in the next few days. Don't be afraid. You will be able to leave the palace soon. By the way, I almost forgot. This medicine is for you, just throw it into the incense burner. When a man smells this fragrance, he will think he has worked hard all night. Yes. This is all thanks to the research of the pharmacist in the same village. After learning that the girls didn't want to sleep with the emperor, the medicine was made as early as a talent show. The imperial concubine put away the things and watched her go away reluctantly. On the other hand, after returning to the Su family, the contestants discussed for a whole night and finally decided to take action 3 days later. Chapter 39, 1 year change. The contestants had a good plan, but before they could take action, they received the news that the emperor was unwilling to attend the morning court. The court officials were shocked, confused, and worried. After discussing it, they expressed their willingness to persuade the emperor together. Sujinayu shook his head and rejected his colleague's invitation. The emperor must be very sad now. Why bother to persuade him? It takes time for anyone to recover from sadness. I think the emperor will get better after a while. After saying that, he simply went home. In the end, only a dozen ministers of higher rank went to see the emperor. At first, the emperor didn't know why they came. He just thought it was something important. So he asked the eunuch to let the court officials in. Who knew that, as soon as they came in, they looked so sad. Your Majesty, please accept my condolences. Your Majesty, the funerals of the princes and princesses were grand. They will surely be reborn into good families in the future, and may return to you soon. Your Majesty, shall we hold a general election this year? There are too few people in the harem, which is not good for offspring. If you have more children, you won't be so sad. The ministers chattered, one after another, and didn't notice the emperor's increasingly ugly face at all. Xiao Shunzi lowered his head and complained secretly. What a pot, that is not open. He shouldn't be here, he should have stayed outside just now. The emperor's face became more and more stinky, and finally, he couldn't stand it anymore and shouted, "Get out. All of you get out." He waved his hand, and the cups and teacups on the table broke all over the floor, and everyone was shocked. Xiao Shunzi was relieved that the emperor could vent his anger, and he would not be angry later. He quickly signaled to the eunuchs and asked them to pull this group of tactless ministers out. After everyone left, he asked cautiously, "Your Majesty, do you want the imperial kitchen to send food over?" The emperor sat down on the chair, panting, without answering. He frowned, sat quietly for a long time, and suddenly asked, "By the way, Xiao Shunzi, I remember that the imperial concubine is very good at managing the affairs of the harem. Before, the queen was in a mess, but after the imperial concubine took charge, no palace servants complained that they were missing their monthly salary." Xiao Shunzi was stunned for a moment and nodded. The imperial concubine is really good at managing things. Even he often heard the little palace maids and eunuchs below say good things about the imperial concubine. But why did the emperor ask this? The emperor smiled mysteriously. "I have a good idea. Harem." The imperial concubine was shocked. "Your Majesty, how can you let me go to the morning court? I don't know how to do anything." But the emperor didn't care at all and waved his hand. "Didn't my beloved concubine say that? If you don't know, just learn it." He had tightly controlled the power in his hands before, but now even his son is not his own, and he doesn't know who the throne will be passed on to in the future? Exclamation mark. Getting up early and working so hard every day, who is he doing this for? Exclamation mark. Just when he didn't want to work, he suddenly realized that the imperial concubine was not like the queen at all. She did everything herself, but threw all the chores to the concubines below. This concubine worked for a few months, and that concubine worked for a few months. Isn't the harem still fine? The final power is still in the hands of the imperial concubine. Everyone in the harem is still respectful to her. The imperial concubine can do it this way, so why can't I do it this way? It's better to give the throne to concubines with bad family backgrounds, work for a year or two, and then change a concubine. In this way, he is not afraid that a concubine will completely control the court. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this was a good idea. The emperor immediately issued an order, allowing the imperial concubine to take the lead in trying to be the emperor for a year. The court officials were shocked. They knew that the departure of the princes and princesses was very hurtful to the emperor, but they did not expect the impact to be so great. The emperor had gone crazy. Your Majesty, calm down. It is not good to be a hen crowing at dawn. If the Queen Mother were still alive, she would never allow the harem to interfere in politics. Your Majesty, the imperial concubine is just from a small family. How can she take on such a big responsibility? I think this matter should be handed over to the Queen. The Queen is already in a coma. How can she come out? I think concubine whoever is more suitable. At first, everyone was arguing that they were unwilling to let a woman be the acting emperor, but later, as the argument went on, the ministers whose sisters or daughters were concubines began to argue for their daughters to be the acting emperor. Sujinayu listened expressionlessly. The court was as noisy as a vegetable market. After arguing for a long time, they finally felt something, gradually calmed down, and glanced at the emperor above. The emperor sneered. What? Finally finished arguing? The ministers looked at each other, not knowing what to say for a moment. I said, in the next year, the imperial concubine is the emperor, and I'm the emperor. From now on, you will listen to the new emperor obediently. If you don't listen, even if she drives you away directly, I will not care. He stood up, glanced at the ministers below with cold eyes, and then left with a flick of his sleeves. The imperial concubine sat on the throne inexplicably. Contestants. They had to change their original plan and simply supported the imperial concubine to take the throne. When the imperial concubine began to learn how to be a good emperor, many old nobles were very dissatisfied and secretly wanted to make trouble. However, with the help of Sujinayu and others in literature and Zhu Xingxin in martial arts, her throne was quite stable. Spring went and autumn came, and several years passed. The whole country was full of vitality under the development of the emperors. That's right. The emperor is replaced every year. At first, it was the imperial concubine and other concubines. After the previous emperor passed away, Sujinayu, Zhu Xingxin and others also took the throne and served as emperors for a year. In short, among the contestants in their village, all the children have tried to be emperors. Each emperor also has his own fans. In the tea house passing by, people sitting together and chatting were all madly cheering for their favorite emperors. Over the past few decades, our country has developed and changed rapidly. Every household has surplus grain, and everyone can have enough food and clothing. We have to thank our first empress. She was originally from a farming family, but in just a few years, she was promoted to a noble concubine, and then became an empress. If the empress had not sent people overseas, we would not have the high yield potatoes and sweet potatoes we have today, and we would not have the good life we have today. I think that the reason we can live a good life is thanks to that Prime Minister Su. After becoming the emperor, he sent people to research a lot of technology. We can farm so conveniently and quickly now, thanks to him. He also made good things like cement and glass, which made houses much stronger. It's almost the end of the year. Is it time to change the emperor again? I still want to vote for the empress this year. Chapter 40 The Second Assessment. Ever since the children in her family became emperors, Ruanruan has lived a very happy life. Her son and daughter-in-law are filial, and there are no troubles. She usually goes out to walk birds and appreciate flowers with friends, and occasionally takes care of her grandchildren. Her life is leisurely but comfortable. She couldn't help but sigh. Isn't this assessment too easy? It feels like I didn't do anything, but I passed it so easily. Sister Zhu and others looked at her with strange expressions. Naive. You are too naive. The assessment will only get harder and harder. This is the first round of the first assessment. Basically it allows you to adapt, and you may meet someone to help you in the first few assessments. Later, there will be several single assessments. Single assessment? Ruanruan raised her eyebrows. That's right. Except for you. Everyone around you is an NPC. Everyone faces the same script, but it depends on how well you can do it in the end. By the way, next time you enter a dungeon, you'd better be careful. Some people may have bad intentions. I was deceived by a contestant before, and I almost. Before she could say what she almost did, Ruanruan blinked, and the scene in front of her completely disappeared. Congratulations on passing this assessment and winning 100,000 assessment coins. The second assessment will start in 3 hours. Do you want to return to the real world? Ruanruan chose yes. The docking cabin opened, and she slowly got up and moved her hands and feet. She turned her head to look at other docking cabins. Probably because the time was too short, many people chose not to leave the docking cabin and were still lying in it. She went to see the two white and plump brothers and sisters who were taken care of. Seeing them open their mouths and laugh happily, she felt relieved. This is much better than the original care. Asterisk, the second assessment is about to begin. You are from Jinzhou Jinshi, and you work as a nurse in Jinshi Hospital. The condition for passing this test, ensuring that the daughter grows up healthily. Ruanruan looked at the content carefully and felt a little strange. This passage revealed too little information. It only said that the daughter should grow up healthily. In the previous test, her son had never suffered any life-threatening situation. I wonder if it would be so easy this time. Just as she was thinking, a flash of white light passed by, and the scene in front of her changed. There were two beds in the white ward. A woman was lying on the bed by the window. She was wearing a hospital gown and her face was pale. The woman waved at her and said weakly, "Nurse, this bottle of injection water is finished. Please help me change the injection water." Ruanruan paused and walked forward quickly. She changed the injection water skillfully, then pushed the cart and left the ward. "I'll go." No 88's movements were so skillful just now. Did you see it? Indeed, she reacted very quickly. When the NPC called her just now, I didn't even know what injection water was. The commentator drank a glass of water, stared at the information, and began to explain. It is said that in the ancient times, people did not have medical cabins for medical treatment. They relied on injections and medication to treat diseases. This was their treatment method at that time. How terrifying. Such a thick needle pierced them. Don't they feel any pain? Ruanruan didn't know the excitement on the barrage. She just calmly walked through the corridor and came to the room where the injection water was prepared. Unfortunately, before she could carefully explore the hospital, two doctors from the emergency room pushed a patient over. Oh no. This person has signs of miscarriage. The doctor in the emergency room was wearing blue clothes and a hat. He sent the patient to them and turned away. Ruanruan had an inexplicable premonition. She looked up and saw that the four big words "General Department" were unusually obvious. "Nurse Sue, come and help." A doctor hurried to the bed and carefully did a physical examination. She hurried over and Sue noticed a few strange doctors and nurses. Their faces were unfamiliar, but judging from their movements, they should be contestants. They reached out to touch their white coats, fiddled with their hats, and touched the pens in their breast pockets, their eyes full of excitement. The only NPC doctor was reliable and gave orders in an orderly manner. Several NPC nurses also completed their work very well and completely ignored several contestants. Seeing this, Ruanruan walked around the hospital and got familiar with the place. After running around, it was time for lunch. Suddenly, two people ran over in a hurry and pulled Ruanruan away. "Come and help. There are not enough people," they shouted, and didn't care that she had just eaten a bite of food and pulled her into the operating room. Ruanruan, who was forced to change into surgical clothes. "Wait, I'm not." She was very resistant and wanted to go back to the office immediately. "I know you're not. Shut up and do it," the chief surgeon shouted coldly, his eyes full of irritation. Ruanruan, forget it. Since you don't want to listen to her explanation. She was too lazy to say it. Anyway, she had worked as a doctor and nurse before. What department had she not worked as a doctor? Exclamation mark. She closed her mouth silently and waited for the surgeon's instructions. However, when the first and second assistants were ready, the surgeon walked around the room anxiously, looking like he didn't know what to do. Ruanruan frowned, vaguely having a bad premonition. This strange hospital casually dragged people into the operating room. The wounds had been cleaned and disinfected, and anesthesia had been given, but the surgeon looked at a loss. "Where is the medical cabin? Why don't you take it out?" The surgeon scratched his hat, accidentally revealing his hair, and yelled in annoyance. Ruanruan. It seems that this is a contestant. He didn't even know that he couldn't raise his hands to his shoulders. But he was also unlucky enough. He had to face surgery as soon as he came in. Fortunately, it was just a simple debridement and suture. He just had to sew the wound. If it was another complicated operation, it would be even more frustrating. Sure enough, the other people in the operating room gasped and panicked. "Director, what happened to you? Hurry, change into a new surgical gown. Are you not in a good condition today? Are you too tired? Director, do you want to go back and rest?" As soon as these words came out, the director's eyes lit up. He said ecstatically, "Yes, yes, I'm just too tired. I'm dizzy and can't see clearly. I will go out first. You guys hurry up and find a way." He rushed out impatiently. Everyone was stunned. "Wait, I'm just an intern. I just came here today. I don't know how to suture at all. I'm a nurse. I don't know how to suture either. Don't look for me. I'm only responsible for giving anesthesia. It has nothing to do with me." Chapter 41 System Mechanism. Ruanruan looked down at the patient who was on the verge of collapse and the wound that was about to go wrong if it was not treated, and sighed, "Contact the superiors quickly. Ask them to find a doctor." The people around finally calmed down and hurriedly shouted, "Yes. Find a doctor quickly." They hurried to act. Unfortunately, there are too many patients in the hospital and too few doctors. At this time, there are no extra doctors. Everyone who learned the news. The anesthesiologist sat in front of the monitor with a calm face, observing the patient's condition. The others were dazed. Ruanruan took a deep breath and suddenly found something wrong. The patient's wound was being sutured slowly. Obviously no one did it, but the patient's wound was being sutured. The cold sweat on her forehead fell down. "Is this a world with ghosts?" Exclamation mark. No wonder she was asked to ensure the safety of her daughter. But the one who can help suture must be a good ghost, right? Thinking of this, Ruanruan secretly opened her eyes, but found that there were no ghosts in front of her. The air was very fresh, and the NPCs around turned a blind eye to the scene, only silently expressing their opinions. It seems that this patient will soon recover. The wound is sutured very beautifully. The technique is really good. Everyone be happy. The operation will be successful soon. Looking at this scene, Ruanruan suddenly thought of the first assessment. Although she sells tofu for a living, tofu is not like in ancient times, where you need to grind beans, make stews, etc. Instead, there is a machine. As long as you press the start button, the tofu will pop out by itself, which is not hard at all. If it is not a ghost, the nurse's job is probably the same, and she doesn't need to operate it herself, right? She guessed in her mind, and soon, the patient's wound was sutured. After a day of tossing and turning, she finally waited until the end of get off work, and suddenly received a call from the kindergarten. It turned out that she usually went to pick up her daughter at 4 o'clock, but now it was 5 o'clock. The kindergarten teacher was very worried, so she called to ask. Ruanruan asked for the address, and called a taxi to the kindergarten directly. As soon as she arrived at the door, a 5-year-old little bean fell into her arms. "Mom, I missed you so much. Why did you come so late?" She blinked her big eyes and looked at her with longing. Ruanruan's heart melted with the soft and cute little bean in her arms. "I'm sorry, Mom was busy today and came late." "It's okay, Mom, don't be too tired." The little bean smiled and nestled in her arms, unwilling to leave. Ruanruan picked her up and looked at the kindergarten teacher, feeling very embarrassed. "I'm so sorry, Teacher Huang. I got off work late today and kept you waiting for a long time." "It's okay, my Anmian is a very smart girl." Teacher Huang shook her head and smiled. Ruanruan smiled, and her eyes accidentally saw workers who were building something not far away. She couldn't help but feel a little strange. Teacher Huang turned around and immediately understood. "Oh, are you talking about the construction workers over there?" The principal felt that our kindergarten didn't have a special shelter, which was not good, so he specially asked someone to build a more solid shelter so that we can take the children to hide in it in case of any situation. As she said, she smiled. "Don't worry, mine mother, we usually fence it up and won't let the children get hurt. And this shelter has basically been repaired, and it's just the final acceptance." "Shelter?" Ruanruan was stunned for a moment, and after thanking the kindergarten teacher again and again, she took her daughter back home. Asterisk life passed peacefully. In just a few days, Ruanruan got used to working in the hospital and taking her daughter with her. After get off work, life in the hospital is simple, much easier than when she was fast-paced before. She used to work hard, but now because the assessment system in the metaverse automatically helps her operate, she often hides and slacks off, waiting to pick up her daughter after get off work. However, this day, it was her turn to work the night shift. Before leaving, Ruanruan squatted down and repeatedly warned her daughter, Mian, when you are alone at home, don't open the door to strangers. Do you understand? Mom, don't worry, Mian is very smart. The little girl blinked her big eyes. Her eyes were full of reluctance, but she still waved her hand. Mom, you have to come back early. After making sure that the monitors at home could operate normally, Ruanruan went to work with some trepidation. The hospital was very quiet at night. What made her feel a little bad was that Doctor Who was on night shift with Ruanruan in the inpatient department and the general department, was also a contestant. She sat in the nurse's station and prayed silently. I hope tonight is a peaceful night. The night gradually deepened. Suddenly, in the silence, the sound of an ambulance came from downstairs. Doctor Who was walking around the office with a curious look on his face. When he heard the sound of an ambulance, he immediately stuck his head out. What sound? Why is it so loud? She replied casually, this is the sound of an ambulance. There must be a patient who needs emergency treatment. Doctor Who, do you want to take a nap? I will wake you up if there is an emergency. Rescue? Doctor Who's eyes suddenly lit up, and he picked up his stethoscope. Then let's go quickly. I really want to see it. How did people treat diseases in ancient times? If I had known that the script this time was so interesting, I would have signed up for the assessment. Anyway, the baby raising qualification certificate will be useful in the future. You guys should go and see the live broadcast room next door. He is a patient and is now in the hospital. He is wearing something like a mask. It's so strange. Ruanruan's expression twisted strangely, and she said speechlessly, but Doctor Who, you are the only doctor in our general department. If you leave, what if someone in the ward has an accident? I'm a nurse and cannot give medical advice. Doctor Who muttered, this NPC is so old-fashioned. I can't even go down to play. She twitched her eyes, did not correct the fact that she was also a contestant, and just sat silently on the chair. At this moment, a call bell suddenly rang. Ruanruan picked it up skillfully. Nurse, it's not good. Patient number 18 fell off the bed, and I don't know if he broke his leg. It's all twisted. The patient's terrified voice sounded in the microphone. She stood up and quickly reported the matter to Doctor Who. Doctor Who's eyes lit up in an instant, and he picked up the stethoscope excitedly and rushed into the ward where bed number 18 was. Ruanruan took a deep breath and barely suppressed the urge to complain. Fortunately, this is a metaverse game, and there are currently no self-aware NPCs awakened in the hospital. Otherwise, if she were a patient and met a doctor like this, she would definitely collapse. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42 Doctor Who. Ruanruan shook her head helplessly, picked up the medical records and followed. However, she was still a step too late. As soon as she entered the door, she heard a scream that echoed throughout the hospital. She looked closely and found that it was Doctor Who took a hammer from somewhere and hit the patient's leg hard. After the patient screamed, his eyes rolled back and he fainted. Ruanruan gasped and felt a dull pain in her legs. Doctor Who, what are you doing? She was so surprised that she couldn't control her voice and almost screamed. Doctor Who made a yeah gesture, full of confidence. I'm treating patient number 18. He fell off the bed and broke his leg, which was twisted all over. When a bone is broken, the bone needs to be broken and then reconnected. He looked up and down at the patient's leg, then opened the patient's eyelids and nodded, saying, I'll prescribe some medicine for him later. Ruanruan. She glanced at the NPC on the bed with sympathy and said, Doctor Who, in fact, you don't need to take any action. His leg will heal on its own. Don't you realize that this is the mechanism of the system? Of course I know. I've been assessed many times. Doctor Who waved his hand and suddenly froze for a moment. But it turns out that you are also a player. No, a contestant? Player? Exclamation mark. He just said player, right? Ruanruan was speechless. For most people, this assessment is more like a game. No wonder they always do things unexpectedly. She rubbed her temples, glanced at the two trembling patients next door, and then looked down at the fainted bed 18. Since you know that the patient's legs will be well soon, why do you still need to do this? Doctor Who held up a finger. Young man, you don't understand this. The knowledge you learned in the metaverse game is also useful in the real world. I'm a great archaeologist. I have also studied the treatment of diseases in ancient times. Now it happens to be the background of the recent ancient times, which just allows me to study the medical methods here. Ruanruan. She closed her eyes in pain and didn't want to argue with him anymore. After settling the patient down and making sure that his legs were slowly recovering, she walked back to the nurse's station with heavy steps. Suddenly, there was a rolling sound. Ruanruan's eyebrows tightened and she turned her head to look. Two people from the emergency room pushed the bed over. They were very tall, but it was still very difficult to push the bed, as if there was something heavy on the bed. This patient has a disease that makes him gain weight if he doesn't get married. We have no way to help him now, so let you handle it, the emergency doctor said, and ran away. Ruanruan looked down and saw a girl who was 1/3 wider than the hospital bed, looking at her with a forced smile. What the hell? What kind of disease is it to gain weight if you don't get married? It's really a game world. What a mess it is! Exclamation mark. What kind of logic was she talking about before? Just when she was having a headache, Doctor Who finally came back from playing enough. Huh? What's the situation with this patient? He looked at the patient in the corridor in surprise. Ruanruan quickly entered the information into the computer and replied casually, it's a disease that makes you gain weight if you don't get married. When she said this, she inadvertently glanced at the various strange diseases in the system, including diseases that make people like to eat soil, diseases that make people cry when they hear sounds, and so on. All kinds of strange diseases are eye-opening. She just wanted to know how the person who made this game script came up with it. Just as she was sighing silently, Doctor Who suddenly became mentally shocked. This beautiful lady, if you don't mind, that I already have a 5-year-old son, I wonder if you are willing to marry me? Ruanruan was shocked. The patient would also be surprised. Only Doctor Who smiled silently. She frowned. Drive Who, please don't harass the patient. However, the female patient suddenly smiled. Thank you, doctor, as long as you are willing to marry me, I will lose weight soon. Ruanruan widened her eyes. The exhausting night finally passed. Ruanruan was troubled by the mess in the hospital. Fortunately, the next day was Sunday. Not only could she rest, but her daughter didn't have to go to school. She staggered back home with huge dark circles under her eyes. Mom, you are finally back. Sue and me and saw her, and immediately threw herself into her arms. Nodding with sleepiness, Ruanruan quickly made breakfast, let her daughter play by herself after eating, and she went to bed. When she woke up, it was already noon. The daughter squatted on the balcony, her little brows frowned, and her expression looked a little solemn. Ruanruan? Question mark? What's wrong? Mom, the cabbage seems to be dying. Is it because the sun killed it? She pointed at the pitiful cabbage on the balcony, her eyes full of worry. Ruanruan chuckled and thought that with the weather in Jin City, it was impossible for the sun to be so strong. She looked down at the wilted cabbage, stretched out her hand, and felt the hot sun outside. When she realized that the temperature was wrong, a heavy look flashed in her eyes. The TV next door was very loud, and she could hear it standing on the balcony. Today's weather is as high as 40. Please be careful when working outdoors. Ruanruan frowned and quickly opened her phone to take a look. April 20th. According to the geographical location of Jin City, shouldn't this date be spring? It's even just after winter. How can it be 40 degrees high? In the barrage, everyone was also surprised. I just came in, and opened my five senses, and I almost thought my house was on fire. Was the weather so bad in the recent ancient times? No wonder the ancients always said it was difficult to survive. After all, there is no protective cover. I heard that it will be dangerous when it is windy and rainy. Thinking of the shelter that was suddenly built in the kindergarten, Ruanruan had a bad feeling in her heart. Without taking a rest, she went out for a big shopping trip and avoided people when she came back with things. By the time the house was full of food, clothes and various daily necessities, it was already late at night. Monday. Ruanruan sent her daughter to kindergarten and went to work at the hospital as usual. What is shocking is, you are the patient that day. She looked at the plump but curvaceous lady in front of her, which was really unbelievable. Hey. A few days ago, she was still too fat to walk, but today she is like a different person. This is not weight loss, this is a completely different person, right? The beauty smiled, and a hint of shyness flashed in her eyes. It's me. Thank you for that day, my illness is cured. Chapter 43. Suddenly happy. Ruanruan was stunned. When she stood there stupidly, she heard the familiar voice of Doctor Who behind her. Hey. She didn't do anything. Okay. Lily, you can recover because of me. Lily was startled, turned around and saw Doctor Who's grinning face. A happy smile suddenly appeared on her face. She flew into his arms and said in a tender voice, yes, Brother Who, you are the best to me. Ruanruan looked at this scene that seemed like an idle drama and got goosebumps all over the floor. She looked at the strange couple walking away with a wooden face. But soon, she didn't pay attention to Doctor Who anymore. Hail suddenly fell outside the window. Each hailstone was as big as a fist, and the cars on the road were smashed. People who were still walking outside were scared. Some of them were knocked unconscious by the hailstones on the spot. Some reacted quickly took out their backpacks to block their heads, and ran to the buildings next to them, and some stood there stupidly, not daring to move except screaming. Through the window, Ruanruan looked down at the frightened expressions of the people outside, and became more and more worried. She immediately called her daughter. Mom. Mian's happy voice came from the other end of the phone. She secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Mian, it's raining heavy hail outside. It's very dangerous. Don't run around, okay? Mom will be worried. Hail. Mian's somewhat puzzled voice sounded. I saw it. Mom, don't worry, I won't run around. But Mom, don't run around either. Okay, Mom, it's safe here. Wait for me to pick you up after school in the afternoon. Ruanruan hung up the phone with a serious look in her eyes. She suspected that this was not a normal modern world at all, but a script like the end of the world. However, when Ruanruan told the contestants in the hospital the news, she was laughed at loudly. You are just too nervous. The weather in ancient times was always bad, which has been recorded in ancient books. You are afraid of even such a small thing. You have always scored 0 in the wilderness survival course, right? Am I an archaeologist, or are you an archaeologist? If I say it's okay, then it's okay, don't worry. What happened to number 88? Why does she look so nervous? Have you opened your 5 senses? I feel that the smell of the hospital is so fragrant. There is an indescribable comfort. Are you crazy? Exclamation mark. It is said that this is the smell of disinfectant. Everyone finds it pungent, only the people upstairs like it, right? Go and watch number 892's live broadcast room. He happened to be sweeping the floor in the garden. The ice cubes are so fun. Because of the sudden hail, the whole hospital was in a busy state. So many people were injured by the hail that even the beds in their department were all occupied. After a busy day, it was finally time to get off work. After the handover, Ruanruan struggled to hold an umbrella and went to the kindergarten. The hail continued to fall and hit the umbrella. Along the way, she repeatedly dissipated the force of the hail and kept it outside. Fortunately, the quality of the umbrella was good enough, otherwise it would have been scrapped long ago. However, when she arrived at the entrance of the kindergarten, she found that there was no one. Fortunately, the security guard was still sitting in the guard room. When he saw her, he quickly opened the door. Parents, come in. Ruanruan quickly hid in. Master, may I ask where the teachers and children have gone? They are all hiding in the shelter. Go straight from here. Look. That's the place. The security guard pointed to the newly built shelter not far away. The hail outside is too big. I heard that the bus and subway have stopped running. The shelter has stored a lot of food and daily necessities. You should go with us to hide. After thanking the security guard for his kindness, Ruanruan insisted on taking her daughter away after seeing the teacher. Fortunately, my Anmin was very brave and was not afraid of hail. Asterisk after a night, the sky was clear. If it weren't for the bumps on the ground, Ruanruan would have thought that yesterday was just a dream. But this hailstorm was just the beginning. In the following days, the weather was hot and cold, windy and rainy. Even the contestants with good physical fitness began to feel uncomfortable. That night, Ruanruan was on night shift again. Doctor Who sat beside her and complained. At first I thought this job was interesting. But after a long time, I found that this job doesn't even have holidays. Holiday? Ruanruan tore open the lollipop. Didn't you take 2 days off this month? When she was a doctor in the fast travel world, she worked almost all year round and was busy from morning to night every day. This assessment system was already very easy. What do you know? I have a good friend who is the president of the company next door. He lives a good life. I envy him to death. Doctor Who opened the window and pointed to the hundreds of floors next door. Ruanruan looked in the direction of his finger and was immediately shocked. So lucky? Next door is one of the largest groups in the world. Could it be that his friend was possessed by a koi? However, she changed her mind and recalled that she was the president in the fast travel world. She shook her head again, but the president should be very busy, right? Maybe he can only sleep 3 hours a day, so don't be envious. Before she finished speaking, the familiar sound of wheels rolling came. They both stopped talking at the same time and turned their heads to look. They saw 2 people in emergency room uniforms pushing the hospital bed over. Aren't these the 2 people who pushed Lily over that day? Exclamation mark. Ruanruan's face changed slightly, and she had an inexplicable premonition. They both had gentle smiles on their faces. Good evening. This lady has a disease that makes her gain weight if she doesn't get married. Her current condition is not very good. Anyway, this patient is left to you. Familiar words, familiar tone, familiar smile. Ruanruan always had the illusion of traveling back to the first day of night shift. But the woman on the bed was different from Lily. Lily was a girl with thick black hair, while this lady was blonde. The blonde was crying silently, her face full of despair, and she didn't know what kind of blow she had suffered. Ruanruan entered the information into the system silently like a robot, then pushed the bed into the ward, and did not stay any longer. And Doctor Who, how come he suddenly disappeared? Exclamation mark. Ruanruan stood up nervously. Just when she completed the admission procedure for the patient, Doctor Who suddenly disappeared. Thinking of the blonde lady who had just been admitted, she inexplicably had a bad premonition. She hurried to the blonde lady's ward and happened to meet Doctor Who coming out. Doctor Who's face was full of smiles at this time, and the blonde lady also smiled, as if she had encountered something good. Ruanruan. Doctor Who, why is she so happy all of a sudden? Chapter 44 The Murderer. A person who has been sad all the time suddenly laughs. It may not be a sign of improvement, but may be crazy. However, Doctor Who raised his head with some pride. You know what? Linda is a beautiful and elegant lady. I can't bear to see her suffering from the disease, so I decided to save her. I want to marry her. Hiss, but aren't you going to marry Lily? You are committing bigamy, right? Ruanruan's eyes widened. Bigamy? Doctor Who raised his eyebrows and shook his head. No, no, no. Since Lily has recovered her health, Linda naturally needs my help more. Just break up with Lily and then marry Linda, isn't that all? Ruanruan took a breath. I'm afraid this isn't a good idea. After all, you have already promised Lily. How can you suddenly break up and marry someone else? Even if you may have good intentions. The problem is, this is just like cheating. He can introduce a single man to Linda. Doctor Who shook his head. Alas. So you can't be a doctor. When you heard about Linda's past, didn't you have any impulse to sacrifice yourself for others? Ruanruan. He shook his head and walked into the lounge. She shook her head helplessly. After all, it was someone else's private matter, and she couldn't persuade them anymore. However, a few days later, on a dark night with a storm, Ruanruan suddenly heard an extremely terrified scream. She rushed to the ward, but found that it was not a serious illness that made the patient scream in panic, but, looking at the blood on the ground, Ruanruan frowned. She turned on her mobile phone. Hello, I want to call the police. Not long after, the police car came with a beep. The deceased is a doctor in the general department of Jinshi Hospital. His surname is Hu. His partner on night shift is Nurse Su, and the person who found the deceased. Ruanruan looked at the cordoned off scene and the patients who were peeking around, and sighed secretly in her heart. Did you see how Leo Hu died? I have been watching his live broadcast, and I didn't see anyone coming with a knife. Suddenly the screen went black. So strange. Old Hu is so miserable. He always participates in the competition, and he always fails. I don't know what happened this time. Exclamation mark. Could it be that Nurse Su who murdered him? Exclamation mark. After all, they always quarreled when they were on night shift. The problem is that the public security in the ancient times was quite good. If she made trouble here, she would be easily discovered. Does she have to hurt people? Indeed. In the first assessment, all the contestants in the same district as number 88 scored the highest score and received 100,000 assessment coins. The current copy does not require them to fight each other, so she has no reason to do it. After the on-site investigation, Ruanruan was called in for questioning. Ruanruan, 26 years old, has been a nurse in Jinshi Hospital for 2 years. Her partner in the night shift is Dr. Hu. The police officer sitting above read out her information expressionlessly. Ruanruan lowered her head and secretly thought about the clues just now. Regarding Dr. Hu, what kind of person do you think he is? She was stunned for a moment and replied subconsciously, Drive Hu is tall, humorous, fashionable, and a relatively cheerful person. After saying that, she couldn't help but frown. Damn it. I've been urged to get married so many times in the past that I'm used to hearing this. The police officer seemed to be stunned for a moment and then asked again after a while, Do you know Dr. Who's friends? How is his relationship with his colleagues? Does he have any enemies? Ruanruan calmed down. Drive Who's friends? I don't know. He and I are just colleagues. He gets along well with us, although he is a little silly sometimes. But in general, he is not a bad person. If you want to talk about enemies, there shouldn't be any, right? The person above looked at her in surprise. Everyone says that you and Doctor Who don't have a good relationship. Do you have any conflicts? Ruanruan twitched her lips. There is no conflict. It is normal to quarrel occasionally. At this point, she paused and suddenly remembered what Doctor Who had done recently. However, he did encounter some problems recently. Some time ago, a patient came to our department, named Lily. If Doctor Who has anyone who may harm him, she guessed that it has something to do with Lily and Linda. I wonder if he is watching the live broadcast after he goes out now. Ruanruan shook her head secretly. And in the barrage, Doctor Who is indeed watching Ruanruan's live broadcast. What's wrong with Sumizi? Lily and Linda are so gentle. How could they possibly harm me? Is that Leo Who above? Quarter Leo Who. You are so unlucky this time. I heard that ancient people used pomelo leaves to bathe to get rid of bad luck. Leo Who, you fail every assessment soon. You might as well follow the goddess. I have a hunch that the goddess is a big shot. You can win easily by following the goddess. Leo Who, you threw away such a good opportunity for you. What a pity. Leo Who couldn't help shaking his head when he saw the comments saying that it would be a pity for him not to follow Ruanruan. It was difficult for him, an experienced old player, to pass the level, and these people actually thought that a newcomer could pass the level? Exclamation mark. What a lack of vision. He concentrated on thinking for a while and typed his speculation on the barrage. I already know the truth. It must be my neighbor. There are 4 families on the first floor of my house, one of which has not yet had anyone move in, and the other 2 sides are occupied by a man and a woman. My neighbor's girl seems to be very interested in me. Every time I go back, I can see her on the stairs. If she is not interested in me, what else could it be? Exclamation mark. But this is not a love triangle. She likes me, I don't like her, but the man next door likes her. It must be that the man next door is jealous of me, so he sent someone to murder me. How hateful. The audience was stunned by the truth on the barrage. It's a pity that I can't tell the contestants, otherwise the goddess can help you get revenge. Ruanruan didn't know about Leohu's speculation, otherwise she would be speechless. Because she lived in the same community, she often ran into Leohu's neighbor. In fact, the neighbor's get off work time basically overlapped with this. How could he not run into him? Exclamation mark. Except when they were on night shift, they returned to the community at almost the same time as the girl. The police investigated very quickly, especially after learning about Lily Linda from Ruanruan. The investigation progressed by leaps and bounds. In just a few days, the whole incident had been thoroughly investigated. It was Lily who did it. Lily was handcuffed to a chair, her expression cold. Even though her clothes looked a little messy, they still couldn't hide her graceful figure. Why did you kill him? Because he wanted to break up with me, Lily said in a faint tone, her eyes wandering. Chapter 45. Let it be. I used to lose weight when I talked about marriage with my boyfriend, but I gained weight again when they broke up with me. Lily's eyes were blank. I don't want to kill him, but if he doesn't die, I will gain weight again. The sister next door also had the same disease as me, but after her husband died, she never gained weight. Lily's eyes were filled with tears. I know I was wrong, but I don't regret it. Her tone was very light, but very firm. Ruanruan. When the examiner set up the script, did he magnify the negative emotions of the NPC? Exclamation mark. So terrifying. The barrage was also stunned. Where is Leohu? Didn't he say that the murderer was the neighbor next door? Exclamation mark. He was so confident. Leohu should have listened to the goddess earlier. Now he failed the assessment again. I don't know if he will regret it later. Leohu really regretted it. He didn't expect that the gentle Lily would be so cruel. He kept watching Ruanruan's live broadcast. According to the police investigation, he was poisoned and vomited blood to death. Lily took action on the first day she learned that he wanted to break up, and then she increased the dosage every day. He worked the night shift that day, and the toxins in his body had accumulated quite a lot. Under the stimulation of irritability, his body finally couldn't stand it. He silently turned off the live broadcast and lay on the bed with a heavy heart. Doctor Who was gone, and Ruanruan's night shift partner was replaced by an NPC. NPCs are much more reliable than contestants. At least they won't break other people's legs or suddenly want to marry someone. Ruanruan's life became more and more peaceful. This morning, after checking the room, she was eating breakfast when she suddenly noticed that it was raining meteorites outside the window. Her face changed slightly, and she subconsciously covered her pounding heart. The meteorite gave her a very bad premonition. After many years of fast travel, Ruanruan trusted her intuition very much. She felt that thing was not good, and the meteorite rain must be really bad. Ruanruan immediately hid in the corner and took out her mobile phone. The bad thing was that she couldn't contact either her daughter or the kindergarten teacher and principal. She was so anxious that she wanted to grow wings and fly to find her daughter. She took a deep breath, changed her clothes immediately, and prepared to rush to the kindergarten. But before she reached the elevator, her eyes went dark. Before she completely lost consciousness, she vaguely saw a heavy black rain outside the window. Oh my god. The goddess fainted. Is she too tired from work? No. Look at the other contestants. Everyone fainted. Not only the contestants, but also the NPCs fainted. Is the whole world fainting? What's going on? Look at the rain outside the window. It's black. This is the first time I've heard of it. Is it a rare weather? The barrage was very lively, but in the Metaverse game, the whole world was quiet, with only the sound of rain falling. Asterisk. When Ruanruan woke up, she found that there were people fainting all around her, lying on the ground in all directions. She held her forehead and slowly got up. The strange temperature on her forehead gave her a bad premonition. No way. She got a fever after lying on the ground for a while. Is her body so weak? Exclamation mark. Ruanruan took a thermometer from the cart next to her and measured it for herself. 39.5. High fever. She sighed helplessly, thinking about going to the emergency department for an injection first, and then rushing to pick up her daughter home. The meteorites outside gave her a feeling of, huh, exclamation mark. Ruanruan turned her head to look out the window, but found that it was quiet outside. There was no meteorite rain at all, only puddles of black water on the ground. She frowned, walked through the crowd to the first floor, and looked up to see the time displayed in the lower right corner of the panel for calling numbers. It turned out to be May 3rd. She frowned and found something wrong. She clearly remembered that when she fainted, it was still May 2nd, because she could rest on the 3rd and didn't have to go to work at all. She originally thought that she was just fainted for a short while. Who knew that she was actually fainted for a whole day? Ruanruan became a little nervous when she noticed that the doctors, nurses, and patients on the first floor were all fainted. Her expression became even worse. She hurried to go out and suddenly noticed the sound at the gate of the hospital. Everyone was unconscious except her. The sudden sound was very obvious. She turned her head and saw a person slowly getting up from the ground, but he didn't know if he had broken his bones or what, and it took him 5 minutes to get up. Ruanruan tried to get closer. However, when there was still about 100 meters away, the man seemed to feel Ruanruan's presence and turned his head to look over. She gasped instantly, twisting the neck 180 degrees. No matter how you think about it, it is not something a normal human can do. Just as she was thinking deeply, the man finally stood up. He was covered in blue and purple, and his movements were extremely stiff, like a rusty machine, slowly approaching her direction. Ruanruan's face changed slightly. It turned out to be a zombie. Sure enough, it was not an ordinary modern script. It was a doomsday script. She had a headache, and after searching left and right, she finally found a bundle of strong hemp ropes and tied up the zombie tightly. How terrifying. Was there such a terrifying thing in the ancient times? This is the end of the world. Have you forgotten history? When we didn't have a spaceship, one day, meteorites and black rain fell from the sky, and the people on the planet turned into zombies. Only then did scientists develop spaceships. The history books only said that zombies appeared, but they didn't say that zombies were so scary. Many people on the barrage became nervous. Ruanruan was very calm. Considering the scarcity of medicine and the end of the world, she opened the assessment mall. The mall has a lot of things, but the things she wants to buy are also very expensive. A 1 square meter space button actually costs 100,000 assessment coins. She only got 100,000 assessment coins in the last assessment. The price of medicine is not cheap either, but fortunately, basic living supplies are not particularly expensive. For example, 10 assessment coins can buy a kilogram of rice, and a piece of clothing costs 50 to 100 assessment coins. Ruanruan thought about it, and finally did not use the assessment coins to buy things. Instead, she went directly to the hospital, and found 2 new backpacks in the warehouse. These were originally used for raffles, when the hospital was preparing for an event, but now it is cheap for her. Rushing into the pharmacy, she took a lot of commonly used medicines and changed herself into a protective mask by the way, and then rushed to the kindergarten. Don't ask her why she didn't take antipyretics. According to her experience, when the end of the world just began, symptoms such as fever were generally signs of the activation of supernatural powers, and it was best to let nature take its course instead of suppressing it with medicine. And if you go out now, there may be strange viruses in the air. Chapter 46 No superpowers. It feels so unfair. Why has number 88 woken up, but the others haven't woken up yet? The official said that their own physical fitness will be reflected in the metaverse world. The better their physical fitness is, the earlier they will wake up. Isn't the goddess having a fever? Is it really okay not to go for treatment? Ruanruan rushed to the kindergarten, but found that the entire kindergarten was empty. She was startled and ran all over the kindergarten. Fortunately, everyone in the kindergarten hid in the shelter and was safe. However, because the shelter was not spacious and looked like a corridor, they all fell into a coma and lay on the ground in a row. In the dark space, it looked a bit weird. but this made it easier for Ruanruan to find someone. After finding her daughter, she quickly picked her up and rushed back home. When holding her daughter, Ruanruan looked a little solemn. Not good. She was in a bad mood, weak all over, and seemed to be fainting again. Fortunately, before she fainted, she finally returned home, forced herself to settle her daughter down, and put some small bread on her daughter's bedside table to fill her stomach. As soon as she entered her room, she fell down. At this time, the barrage became more and more lively. The sky began to rain black again. When will it stop? Why did the goddess faint again? Is she okay? Look at the live broadcast room next door. Someone woke up again. Oh my god. What a good luck. He actually has superpowers. Yes. I remember that there were superpowers at the end of the world, but after the ancestors moved to the interstellar, the superpowers gradually disappeared and turned into mental power. The audience laughed and turned their attention to those who had just woken up. Ahaha. I'm the chosen one. I want to dominate the world. After an NPC raised his head and laughed wildly, he raised his hand and a beam of fire shot out of his hand. A contestant stood up in surprise, holding his forehead, as if his head hurt. However, he didn't notice that a flash of lightning suddenly appeared in his hand and hit his head. He rolled his eyes and fainted again. A beautiful contestant opened his eyes and stood up with the help of the pillar next to him. However, she was only looking around and didn't see that her hand was pressed on the pillar. The pillar was like tofu and was instantly torn apart by her. When she got up, dust fell from her head. She looked up and saw that the building supported by the pillar was shaky and was about to collapse. She screamed in fear and ran out, but her feet sank into the floor and it was very difficult to run. Although I have heard that the first group of people who woke up had great superpowers, this is too exaggerated, right? But number 88 also woke up very early. Why didn't she cause any trouble? Could it be that some contestants don't have superpowers? Exclamation mark. The official said that in order to ensure that all contestants have superpowers, they will provide them with superpower lottery services in the mall. You can buy it with only 100 assessment coins and get a superpower at random. Then people who already have superpowers will have 2 superpowers. When Ruanruan woke up again, the black rain had completely disappeared. Her daughter was standing by her bed, looking at her eagerly, with tears in her eyes. Mom, you finally woke up. You have been sleeping for 3 days. She threw herself into Ruanruan's arms and sobbed. Don't be afraid. Ruanruan patted her daughter's back and slowly got up. However, the warm atmosphere lasted only a few seconds, and suddenly there was a roar outside, like the roar of a wild beast, with a bit of mechanical feeling, which sounded very harsh. Ruanruan's face froze. She walked to the door and listened carefully to the movement outside. Mom? Mian followed her uneasily and heard the roar of a beast outside and couldn't help but feel a little scared. She hugged her daughter tightly, whispered softly, and signaled her not to speak. However, her daughter's voice had alarmed the zombies outside, and the originally sturdy door was banged. Looking at the door that was hit, Ruanruan felt something was wrong. If it keeps hitting like this door will really not be able to hold on. Mian, you hide in the room. Mom will go outside to fight the monsters, and we'll be back soon. Okay. She took her daughter back to the room and told her seriously. Mian was a little scared. Mom, can you not go? Isn't it good for us to hide in the room? Our door won't last long. If people outside keep hitting the door, our door can't protect us. Ruanruan squatted down, hugged her daughter, and comforted her for a long time, and finally calmed her down. Ruanruan was a little worried. The order of the end of the world collapsed. Without teachers, how could she know how to teach children? In the fast travel world, she did work as a teacher, but the problem was that she taught college students or graduate students, but she had never taught children. While thinking about it in trouble, she picked up a kitchen knife and walked out of the house and quickly killed the zombies outside. When she came back, there was not even a trace of dirt on her body. Kneel down for the boss. I saw several people were so scared that they dared not move. I thought that number 88 would be weak because he woke up so late. I didn't expect him to be so strong. Damn it. Why didn't my brother live in the same area with the boss? Exclamation mark. This is a great opportunity to win without doing anything. Didn't you notice that she didn't use her superpowers? Most likely, she didn't have any superpowers. What a pity. I think the random skills given in the mall are not very useful. Ruanruan returned to the room, hugged her trembling little daughter, and comforted her softly. Mian, don't be afraid. Mom will protect you. Mian saw that she was not injured, and she was completely relieved, with a smile on her face. Mom is so awesome. So strong. The goddess is really awesome. Even if she encounters danger, she can protect her children. If I were a daughter, I would definitely feel safe. Is this the purpose of the child raising assessment? We have all seen that the goddess's performance is particularly good. When will the official issue a certificate to the goddess? However, a few days later, Ruanruan and her daughter sat across the table from each other, and there was a cake on the table. After blowing out the candles, Ruanruan's expression was very serious. Mian, you are already a 6-year-old child. I can't hide it from you. I guess you have also discovered it? The world has changed. There are many monsters outside. If you want to survive, you must learn to protect yourself. Mian blinked her big eyes and looked at her in a daze. Then, a fruit knife was stuffed into her little hand. From today on, you will practice fighting with me for 1 hour every day. Chapter 47 Cleaning Up. Ruanruan clenched her fists, her face full of fighting spirit. Our goal is to defeat the zombies. Mian raised her little head, looked at her, and clenched her little fists in a baby voice. Defeat the zombies. Audience. Crazy. Number 88 was finally driven crazy. She actually let a little kid fight. Does she know what she is saying? It's just learning to fight, and she didn't let the child fight zombies directly. Didn't we all start to get in touch with mechas when we were 5 or 6 years old? Damn it. The boss next door is even more terrifying. He actually brought his son to catch zombies and do experiments. Is this the world of bosses? No wonder I'm not a boss. Mian began to learn to fight with her mother. At first she felt very panicked, but after going out with her mother a few times, she didn't feel that difficult. Her mother said that she was only 5 years old and her strength was too small. It would be difficult to defeat zombies. As long as she could avoid the zombies, it would be fine. Zombies run very slowly, and their brains don't work well. As long as you are careful, there will be no danger. However, suddenly one day, my mother met a strange uncle. They said a few words to each other mysteriously, and my mother's face became strange. It seemed a little happy, a little excited, but also a little complicated. Could it be that my mother wanted to find a new father for herself? She asked curiously. Pucci, why do you think so? That's just my mother's fellow villager. Ruanruan was a little surprised, hugged her daughter, and explained reluctantly. The contestant she met this time gave her a very important news. The mall has new products. The mall didn't have this thing before. It should be a new product in the past few days, especially for contestants to deal with the end of the world. This product called the Superpower Lottery only requires 100 assessment coins to draw a lottery and get a random superpower. There is only one chance to draw a lottery, and this product cannot be given to children or other people, only for yourself. And since it is random, the superpowers obtained by this lottery are also good and bad. I heard from the contestants I met that the more powerful superpowers include all system superpowers, lightning superpowers, ice superpowers, etc. All system superpowers refer to the 5 systems of gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. Those who draw these superpowers can be said to be the Emperor of Europe. But there are also some more bizarre superpowers, such as glowing after eating, and being able to breathe in the sea like a fish. These superpowers are really useless, and they are the kind that are tasteless and a pity to throw away. After thinking about it for a night, Ruanruan decided to draw a lottery with several contestants. Because even if it is a superpower given by the assessment mall, it will faint for 1 to 5 hours. If something breaks in during this period, it will be difficult to guarantee the safety of my daughter. The character of the contestants I met recently is pretty good. Ruanruan patiently explained to her daughter and took her to the base of the contestants' remote villa. There are a total of 10 people here, divided into 2 groups for superpower awakening, and the other part is responsible for protecting everyone's safety. Is there any problem? A man with a cold face stood in the middle, folding his hands around his chest and gestured. Brother Lou's method is good. I have no problem. Everyone responded in unison. Ruanruan, as one of the first awakened people, calmed her daughter and then pressed the lottery button with a serious face. The lottery page was shining with golden light, and it looked like she could get something good. She couldn't help but look forward to it. The shining golden light lasted for about 10 seconds. Before she saw the result of the lottery, her eyes went black and she fainted. In the darkness, Ruanruan vaguely felt a small hand holding her hand. She subconsciously held it back, and then she was stunned for a moment. This should be Mian's hand, right? Mian, be good. Let your mother have a good rest, okay? A gentle voice coaxed. Mian wants to accompany her mother. Mom will be scared alone. Mian's little voice was full of worry. Okay, auntie will get you some food, don't be hungry. The gentle voice seemed a little helpless. Then there was a rustling sound. Ruanruan felt that a small body was lying beside her. She smiled subconsciously. However, not long after, she heard the conversation of Brother Lou and the others again. Brother Lou, I have to say that this script is too bad. There are too few people with superpowers, right? I think everyone has to rely on lottery to get superpowers. Did you have a fever when you woke up? Anyone with a fever, even if it only lasts for a few minutes, must have superpowers. There was a person with a fever before who didn't have superpowers, and we thought he was an exception, but it turned out that he had psychic superpowers. Or he used them because he was in danger. You will have superpowers if you have a fever? But I don't have a fever. Ruanruan didn't listen to the rest of the words. She felt something was wrong. If what they said was true, then why didn't she have superpowers? Exclamation mark. Maybe there was something wrong with their investigation results. Although she thought so, Ruanruan had a hunch in her heart. I'm afraid that the results found by Brother Lou and the others are not a problem. Then that is. Ruanruan's eyes turned cold, and she quickly called out to the quick travel system 123 in her mind. System, where have you been? So handsome. Quick travel system 123 wiped the non-existent saliva, pulled her gaze back abruptly, and responded casually, What do you want from me? You're retired, and I'm retired too. Don't think about my work. Listening to its vigilant voice, the veins on Ruanruan's forehead throbbed. She gritted her teeth and said, Look at my current situation. I heard that you will have superpowers after having a fever. Why don't I have any? The quick travel system 123 was a little confused. After quickly looking at what happened during this period, it quickly scanned it and said, You can't blame me for this. Originally, you did have superpowers, but because your body was too strong, you treated the superpowers as viruses and cleared them away. But don't worry, the superpowers in the assessment mall will not be cleared away again. The quick travel system 123 comforted casually, I'll leave if nothing happens. I'm still busy chasing dramas. After the words fell, the system's figure completely disappeared, leaving only darkness. Ruanruan twitched her eyes, but she didn't care. As time passed, her perception became clearer and clearer. The smell of the wind, the feeling of dust falling, the roar of the zombies. Ruanruan suddenly opened her eyes. Mom. Mian was also awakened, rubbed her eyes, and then smiled, and threw herself into her arms. Chapter 48, Useless. Mian was very surprised, with a big smile on her face, but there was a hint of tiredness in her eyes. Seeing her daughter rubbing her eyes constantly and looking drowsy, Ruanruan simply coaxed her daughter to sleep, before returning to the hall. Are the others awake? As soon as she went out, Ruanruan ran into Luja and others, but when she looked down, she saw 4 people lying neatly on the ground. Ruanruan. Sister Sue, are you awake? Quick, try your superpowers. Luja and others came over curiously, their eyes sparkling. Ruanruan coughed softly, waved her hand, and tried to use her superpowers on the floor. Surprisingly, the moment the light in her hand popped out, the floor actually became shiny. Everyone? Question mark? What kind of superpower is this? Is it a gold superpower? Otherwise, it wouldn't be shining with golden light. The gold superpower is pretty good. Chopping zombies is like chopping watermelons. So fast, whoosh. Just as several people surrounded her to congratulate her, Ruanruan approached the golden floor in silence. She squatted down, reached out and touched it, and suddenly fell silent. Ruanruan looked at the furniture around her, noticed a leather sofa, and used her superpower on the sofa again. As soon as the superpower came out, the sofa instantly became golden. Everyone was very surprised. Sister Sue, what are you doing? She took a breath of cold air. My superpower is not a lethal gold superpower, but a Midas touch. Several people were stunned. Is this the European Emperor? Midas touch turns everything into gold, so what can she still be short of money? What a bullshit European Emperor. If it was in peacetime, this superpower would be really good. But now it's the end of the world. Gold is useless. It seems so. I remember that the boss went shopping a few days ago, and a gold bracelet couldn't even be exchanged for a pack of instant noodles. Haha, although she is so miserable, but so funny. After a long silence in the room, someone finally came back to his senses. Haha, turning stone into gold, not bad. It's really a good ability. I will never lack gold jewelry again. Someone laughed, trying to make the awkward atmosphere more harmonious. The others finally reacted. Yes, yes. Your daughter can play with gold in the future. Yes. If you like, you can also build a golden house for yourself. The floor, walls, sofas, coffee tables, cabinets, beds, are all made of gold. It's so happy. Ruanruan. Thank you. As soon as the words came out, the 4 people lying on the ground frowned and gradually got up. My head hurts. How long have I slept? Brother Lou and the others, who had been racking their brains to comfort Ruanruan, suddenly brightened up and surrounded her, changing the subject. You finally woke up. How are you? What superpowers have you gained? The 4 woke up at the same time and looked at each other. Finally, a girl stepped forward and said, "Let me try first." As she spoke, she stretched out her hand and tried to use her superpower. Puff puff puff, a sound rang out, but nothing changed in front of them. Everyone. Strange. Could this sound be so stinky? Halfway through the words, the person who came closest suddenly covered his mouth tightly. The others gradually smelled a familiar stench, like the smell of farts, and they couldn't help but frowned and squeezed to the window to breathe fresh air. The girl widened her eyes in disbelief, stretched out her hand and sprayed again, and puff 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 again. A stench came. She collapsed immediately. Woo woo. How could this happen? What's the use of this ability, to fart in the palm of your hand? The remaining 3 people who had not yet displayed their abilities immediately showed sympathy, but because the smell was too strong, it was difficult to comfort her. When the stench in the room finally dissipated, the second person stood up to show it. He was a middle-aged man with wheat-colored skin and a crew cut. Standing in front of the sofa, he blasted the sofa with both hands. That was much more powerful than the little girl just now, and it looked like he was going to fire some cannonballs. However, a flower appeared in his palm. A fresh, just blooming rose. The man held the rose in his hand and stood in the middle of the room with a dazed look in his eyes. Everyone. He took a deep breath in disbelief and then used his ability again, and roses appeared from his palms and fell to the ground. He suddenly fell silent, as if there was a dark cloud behind him, and hid in the corner like a mushroom. I'm dying of laughter. One farts, one turns stones into gold, and the other one releases flowers. Are these abilities really used to fight monsters? Fortunately, I didn't participate in this assessment, otherwise I would have vomited blood if I got such an ability. At this time, the others who had been confused for a long time finally came to their senses and began to comfort them. In fact, roses also have thorns, and you can use those thorns to stab zombies. It's not completely useless, right? Yes, that stinky fart just now also had one. Once it was released, do you think the zombies would dare to approach? The person being comforted had a sullen face and couldn't force a smile. They looked at each other, didn't say anything, and squatted aside silently. The remaining 2 people who didn't show their abilities immediately looked bad. As expected, their abilities were also very useless. One of them had the ability to become invisible. But invisibility doesn't mean the whole person can be invisible, it can only make the head disappear. When he used his ability, the people present were so scared when they saw a headless body that their faces twisted and they screamed on the spot. Fortunately, there are not many zombies in this community, otherwise they might have to face the dilemma of being surrounded by zombies. The last person's ability is better, and it is very similar to Ruanruan's ability, but he does not turn stones into gold, but turns stones into eggs. No matter what it is, after being touched by his ability, it will turn into eggs. In fact, for Ruanruan, other abilities are not as good as this one. At least eggs can be eaten. In the end times, the most lacking thing is food. With such a magical ability, are you still afraid that the future will be difficult? After several people showed their abilities, they had different thoughts and the barrage was very noisy. I think there are really many abilities like turning stones into gold. I have seen 4 or 5. Things like gold and eggs are okay. Many abilities, when they are used, actually get slippers, rotten socks and the like. It's really a rip-off. I saw a superpower that is proficient in languages of various countries. He can understand the languages of the world. This ability is perfect in normal times, but it has become a chicken rub in the end times. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49. Sister Zu. Ruanruan and the others were upset for a long time before they gradually regained their composure. The other 5 people who had not yet awakened their superpowers did not choose to awaken immediately because of their big failure. This won't work. Brother Lu crossed his arms and looked solemn. When I went to inquire, I heard that the probability of awakening the superpowers that are not useful and the superpowers that are useful through them all is half and half. As a result, none of the 5 of you can use your 5 superpowers to fight. All 5 superpowers are useless. This probability is not half, it is 100%. Okay! Are you kidding? Is it possible that one of them is a reincarnation of a non-African, so their luck is so bad? Thinking of the stinky farts or flowers spraying out of his hands later, he couldn't help shuddering. The rest of the people nodded one after another, and their faces were not good. They gathered together, chattering for most of the day, and finally smiled. Ruanruan watched silently from the side. However, the second batch of awakened people's coquettish operations surprised her. They actually had to bathe and burn incense before starting to draw superpowers. Although there was not much water available, everyone simply wiped their bodies without using shower gel or flower petals, and the incense was picked up from someone's house, but it was enough to show their piety. I don't know if their behavior touched the assessment system, and the superpowers they finally extracted were all very normal superpowers, such as water and wood. They were much luckier than the first batch of people who drew. The second batch of people who drew superpowers all breathed a sigh of relief. Great. In this way, we have superpowers that can fight, and superpowers that can make people eat eggs, which is enough. What should we do next? Just stay in the villa. Generally speaking, the better the children's future lives, the happier they are, and the greater their contributions to society, the higher our scores will be, but this is a doomsday script. No matter what we do, we can't have a good life, right? Don't worry about it. The most important thing now is to quickly collect supplies. Our current superpower level is still very low, and the eggs transformed by superpowers are not enough to eat enough. We still need to stock up on more things. Brother Lu crossed his arms and said thoughtfully. Everyone nodded. Ruanruan said goodbye to them and left. They had agreed before that it was a temporary team, and they were only responsible for protecting each other when their superpowers awakened. Since everyone's superpowers have awakened, her mission is also completed. Unfortunately, her superpower is really useless, especially since the game is live. Who knows if anyone noticed that she had a fever for a while before? After thinking for a while, Ruanruan decided to pretend that she had two superpowers. One was the power of strength that awakened just after waking up, and the other was the power of turning stones into gold that was extracted later. Anyway, the power of strength is not the same as gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. At most, she can say that the superpower is weak at the beginning, and then slowly increase the strength, so that no one will find out that it is wrong. Her own strength is very strong, and it is very easy for her to pretend to have power. In this way, Ruanruan took her daughter and began her days of killing people. Apart from the fact that teaching her daughter occasionally annoyed her, other things were relatively simple. Currently, there were no other natural disasters or the like in this apocalypse, only zombies. It was a fairly easy apocalyptic world. Asterisk in the dark basement, where no sunlight could be seen, the candle burned slowly. "Mom, are we really going to leave here?" A somewhat panicked voice sounded softly. The woman lying on the quilt opened her eyes with difficulty, panting with her mouth slightly open, and nodded with difficulty. "Baby, go pack your things. Take some clothes, pants, and food with you. We'll leave soon." After saying that, she suddenly widened her eyes and quickly reached out to cover her mouth, but the coughing sound still kept coming out. She turned over and covered her face with the quilt, fearing that the coughing sound would alarm the zombies outside. The little girl was a little worried, but she still went to pack her things obediently. Seeing this, the woman squinted for a while and only opened her eyes after her daughter came over to push her awake. "Mom, I've packed everything." The woman reluctantly got up and checked and stuffed some medicine into her backpack. Holding her daughter's hand in one hand and holding a kitchen knife in the other, she walked out cautiously. She had to be careful. A few days ago, she kindly saved a person, but it almost killed her and her daughter. It was really hateful. Fortunately, they ran fast and found a hidden basement and some food. Otherwise she might not be alive now. The world outside is really too chaotic. When crossing the street, the woman heard a lot of sounds of beating and smashing, accompanied by fierce threats. "Hand over all the food and drinks in the house. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Oh, there's gold here. It's as thick as a finger. I've never worn such a thick gold chain in my life. Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and cook for me. Cook everything you can eat. Don't eat it secretly." The woman pursed her lips, hugged her daughter tightly, avoided the place where the sound came from, and ran past quickly, her figure like a gust of wind. She ran desperately, and finally ran to the city. The air was filled with the aroma of fireworks, which smelled a bit like braised pork. Thinking of this, she subconsciously swallowed her saliva. "Wait. Braised pork?" Exclamation mark. The woman was startled and subconsciously stopped. The little girl in her arms, who had always been well behaved, felt the wind gradually stop, and now she looked up and looked around. "Mom, are we going to live here in the future?" The woman subconsciously hugged her daughter tightly and noticed the strange community in front of her. Other communities had already been in a mess after being beaten and smashed. The walls were covered with the flesh and blood of zombies, which were green and smelly. In addition, there were too many robbers, so almost no one came out. The gate of this community was closed. In addition to the wall, there were some thorny vines or pointed wood outside, probably to block zombies. Although there was no one in the community, it was cleaned up very cleanly, with only a few traces of zombie blood outside the wall. The most shocking thing was that in this community, many houses had smoke coming out of their kitchens, and the aroma of food was drifting with the wind. This seemed to be a scene that only existed before the end of the world, and it made people's eyes slightly red. Her stomach started to growl. The woman subconsciously covered her stomach. Behind her, a sound of footsteps approached. The woman's face suddenly became tense. She hugged her daughter tightly in her arms, and when she was about to run away, she heard a voice behind her. "Sister Zu? Chapter 50. What are you going to do?" When Ruanruan saw someone standing at the gate of the community from a distance, she immediately became alert. Could it be someone trying to cause trouble? However, when she saw the familiar figure from behind, she was a little stunned. "Sister Zu?" she called out tentatively. Who would have thought that the person turned around and turned out to be Sister Zu from the previous assessment? When she saw herself, her eyes widened and tears immediately flowed down. Looking at the aggrieved Sister Zu, Ruanruan was suddenly at a loss. However, this was not over yet. Sister Zu cried for a while and then fell straight down. Seeing that she and the child in her arms were about to fall to the ground, Ruanruan could not care less and hurried up to catch the person. I didn't expect to see Sister Zu here! Exclamation mark. I thought I wouldn't meet her in this assessment. Zu Crossing is in such a miserable situation. Her clothes are tattered and full of stains, and she is as thin as a bamboo pole. I have been following Sister Zu's live broadcast. She rescued an NPC, but was stabbed in the back. Not only was she injured, but all the food in her home was taken away. She has been hungry for 3 days. Fortunately, she took her child to hide and rest for 2 days. Otherwise she would have failed the assessment. Sister Zu had knife wounds on her body, as if she was stabbed by someone. Fortunately, she should have reacted in time and avoided the fatal part, so she did not go offline immediately. And she was skinny, and people would believe that she was a disaster victim in ancient times. Her daughter was not in good condition either. She fainted after crying for a while. Although she was not as thin as a bamboo pole, she was not far behind. Ruanruan stood in front of the bed with a very ugly expression. When Sister Zu woke up and learned from her what had happened in the past few days, Ruanruan's face turned completely black. Do you remember who the person who stabbed you in the back was? She sneered and decided to teach this person a lesson once she saw him. However, Zu Crossing didn't know the other person's name. She scratched her head. I haven't asked yet. Who knew that he would take away the things at home and stab me after waking up? Seeing Ruanruan's speechless face, she hurriedly said, by the way, I still remember what he looks like. I will definitely recognize him when I see him. Ruanruan didn't mention it anymore. With her help, Sister Zu quickly adapted to her new life. Especially Sister Zu's ability is quite good. In addition to the speed ability that awakened after waking up, she also drew an ability that can turn into Chinese cabbage in the assessment system. Although it doesn't sound as good as the egg ability, Chinese cabbage can also be eaten. Asterisk that day, Ruanruan and Zu Crossing went out to find supplies. When they passed by, they suddenly heard the sound of the radio. The end of the world is coming, and all departments across the country are working hard. Sizzle sizzle. So far, the government has established 5 bases across the country, namely the Eastern Base, the Western Base, Sizzle. Ruanruan and the others listened patiently for a long time, and finally understood the content of the broadcast. Susu, what do you think? Are we going to the base now? Zu Crossing thought for a while and asked hesitantly. She didn't want to leave the community. In fact, their current community was cleaned up by Susu. I don't know if the remaining people are afraid of Susu or respect Susu very much. Anyway, they will not do anything secretly and will take the initiative to avoid Susu when they see her. In addition, there are several large shopping malls not far from the community, and the supplies inside are particularly rich. There is no need to worry about lack of food and clothing here. If they want to go to the base, the dangers on the road are enough to give them a headache. Ruanruan found a map from the bookstore and began to ponder silently. In terms of straight line distance, the closest to Jin City is the south base, but looking at the map, it should be easier for us to go to the central base. There is a highway here that can go directly to the central base. She crossed her arms and hesitated. Should I go to the base or stay where I am? This is not the real world, but the metaverse world. She is afraid that if she doesn't go to the official base, it may not be long before there are unpredictable dangers in other places. Ruanruan finally asked Sister Zu for her opinion. After all, they are contestants who have been assessed many times. They should be able to grasp the script of the assessment system better. In my opinion, we still have to go to the official base. After all, the more powerful bosses have gone there. Staying here is a dead end. I don't think there is anything wrong with staying here! Exclamation mark. There are too many ordinary people in the official base. They can't do anything without superpowers. They just sit and wait for food. I think the supplies in the base will not be able to hold up. Indeed, let alone cabbage. Everyone only gets a little porridge. Bang, the glass door was suddenly shattered. Ruanruan and Zu Crossing, who were thinking, were instantly interrupted. The two subconsciously looked up and saw a man about 1.8 meters tall wearing a sports suit and holding a machete in his hand, standing not far away and looking at them. Robbery. Hand over everything you have to eat and drink. The man shouted and slowly approached them. Zoo Crossing was startled and said angrily, "It's you?" The man sneered. "Do you think you can avoid being robbed by getting close to me? You're dreaming." Hiss. "It's you? You're still alive." Halfway through, his face suddenly changed, and the emotions in his eyes were very complicated. 3 parts relaxed, 3 parts mocking, and 3 parts disdainful, and the machete in his hand gradually relaxed. Zoo Crossing hated it so much. "You ungrateful wolf. I saved you, but you not only took away all the things in my house, but also chopped me. I have never seen such a shameless person as you." The man laughed. "What a joke. People like me are normal. People like you who are full of saintly hearts, saving people everywhere, will definitely be betrayed in the future. I just let you feel this taste in advance. It's fine if you don't thank me, but you actually scold me?" After saying that, he shook his head with an expression that looked like a child who didn't understand. Zoo Crossing was so angry that he exploded. Ruanruan didn't bother to say more and directly picked up the wooden stick and rushed forward. The man was startled, as if he didn't expect her to suddenly attack, without even saying "I'm going to attack." He quickly picked up the machete to resist. Although the knife was sharp, his fighting ability was really mediocre, and he was no match for Ruanruan at all. In just a few seconds, he was completely defeated. Not only that, even the machete in his hand was taken away by Ruanruan. Ruanruan looked at him with a smile and kept waving the machete in her hand. You, what do you want to do?" The man swallowed. "Murder is against the law. Do you know?" End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.